In the suburban town of Crestwood, the Monroe family had recently installed a Ring doorbell camera, eager to bolster their home security. However, what began as a safety measure soon led them down a path they could never have anticipated. One chilly evening, the doorbell chimed, and the camera's live feed showed a man standing on the porch, his features partially obscured by the hood of his jacket. Mrs. Monroe peered at the screen, recognizing the man as someone she'd seen on the news, the face of a notorious criminal who had been on the run for weeks. Panic seized her momentarily, but she hesitated, uncertain of what to do. The man glanced directly at the camera, an unsettling grin playing on his lips. His presence creeped them out. "Who is it, dear?" Mr. Monroe asked, noticing his wife's apprehension. "It's nobody," she lied, not wanting to alarm her family. "Maybe just a salesman." Despite her unease, Mrs. Monroe found herself hesitantly pressing the button to unlock the front door. The man stepped inside, his demeanor oddly calm, belying his criminal notoriety. "I need help," he said, his voice carrying a sense of calmness that sent a cold feeling through the room. Mrs. Monroe's heart raced, unsure of how to react. Her instincts told her to call the authorities, but the man's presence rendered her momentarily paralyzed. "Please," he pleaded, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm not what they say. I need shelter." The tension hung thick in the air as Mrs. Monroe exchanged uncertain glances with her husband. They wrestled with the conflicting emotions of fear, sympathy, and an unsettling sense of obligation. Against their better judgment, they allowed the man inside, albeit with cautious trepidation. His presence seemed to cast a pall over the once welcoming atmosphere of their home. As the night progressed, a strange unease settled in. The criminal, whose name they dared not utter, stayed in their guest room. His occasional glimpses and cryptic remarks kept the Monroes on edge, trapped in a constant state of discomfort and anxiety. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive, suffocating the family in a cloud of fear and uncertainty. Mrs. Monroe couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that they had made a grave mistake letting the wanted man inside their home. The man's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his demeanor shifting from pleading desperation to unsettling calmness. It was as if he reveled in the discomfort of his hosts, relishing their unease. As the night wore on, the family attempted to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the criminal's presence loomed like a menacing shadow, staining their once tranquil haven. In a moment that shattered the fragile facade of normalcy, the man disappeared from his room, leaving behind a cold silence. Panic surged through the Monroes as they frantically searched the house, their hearts pounding with dread. The sickening realization dawned upon them. He was nowhere to be found. They were trapped in a house with a known criminal, his intentions unknown and terrifying. Their frantic search ended abruptly when they stumbled upon a grisly sight in the basement. The man standing amidst a sinister display of newspaper clippings and photographs, all detailing his heinous crimes. Before they could react, the man turned to them, his eyes void of remorse, consumed by a chilling madness that sent terror coursing through the Monroes' veins. In a swift, horrifying moment, he lunged forward, his intentions unmistakably clear. The Monroes' screams pierced the night, echoing the horror of their last moments, a night forever stained with the terror of trusting a stranger. Story 2. The Thompsons had recently installed a Ring doorbell camera in their suburban home, hoping to add an extra layer of security. But what began as a safety measure soon turned into a source of unease. One chilly autumn evening, the doorbell rang, and Mr. Thompson hastily checked the live feed on his phone. To his confusion, the screen displayed only the empty porch, bathed in the soft glow of the porch light. No one was there. Strange, he muttered, dismissing it as a glitch. However, a few minutes later, the doorbell chimed again. This time, Mrs. Thompson approached the camera, opening the app on her phone. The screen remained unchanged, an empty porch, devoid of any visitor. But then they heard it, a faint sound, barely audible but distinct enough to scare them. Heavy breathing. Ragged and ominous, it seemed to emanate from the speakers of their Ring doorbell. "Did you hear that?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice quivering with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Mr. Thompson furrowed his brow, his gaze fixed on the doorbell camera. "Yeah, someone's breathing, but where are they?" The breathing continued, growing louder and more erratic with each passing second. They checked the live feed repeatedly, but it showed nothing but the silent porch. Unease settled in as the breathing persisted, creating an unsettling atmosphere inside the house. The Thompsons exchanged worried glances, feeling the weight of the unknown presence lurking just beyond their front door. Despite their growing discomfort, they decided to investigate. Mr. Thompson cautiously opened the front door, expecting to find someone standing on the porch or nearby, but the chilly night revealed nothing but empty streets and rustling leaves. They retreated indoors, unnerved by the inexplicable occurrence. As the night progressed, the unsettling breathing episodes continued sporadically, always accompanied by the sound of heavy labored breaths, yet never revealing the source. With each occurrence, their nerves frayed, their minds tormented by the relentless and inexplicable phenomenon. Sleep eluded them, replaced by the haunting anticipation of the next instance of a sinister breathing echoing through their home. Hours dragged on, the tension escalating with each passing minute until suddenly the breathing stopped. A deafening silence enveloped the house, amplifying the Thompsons' fear and confusion. Just as they began to exhale a collective sigh of relief, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, resonating from the direction of the Ring doorbell camera. The scream was gut-wrenching and primal, sending shockwaves of terror through the Thompsons. Frozen in terror, they stared at the camera feed, their eyes widening in horror as the screen showed a distorted, contorted face, eyes wide with madness and a twisted, maniacal grin contorting the features of the unknown visitor. Before they could react, the camera abruptly cut to black, plunging them into darkness. The house was silent once again, but this time their fear was palpable, rooted in the horrifying uncertainty of what lay beyond their door. As the Ring doorbell camera abruptly cut to black, leaving the Thompsons in a chilling darkness, panic seized their senses. Mrs. Thompson fumbled for her phone, attempting to reconnect to the camera feed, but the app displayed nothing but a blank screen. Heartbeats thundered in their chests as they stood in the silence, enveloped by the foreboding atmosphere that had invaded their once cozy home. The seconds stretched into an agonizing wait, each moment feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered with a resounding crash, the sound of a window shattering in the living room. They exchanged panicked glances, dread gripping their every nerve. Without hesitation, they dashed toward the source of the disturbance. As they entered the living room, a bone-chilling sight greeted them. A figure cloaked in darkness standing amidst the shattered glass, its presence casting a haunting shadow against the moonlit wall. "Who are you? What do you want?" Mr. Thompson's voice quivered with a mix of fear and defiance. The intruder remained silent, their face obscured by the darkness of the hood. A sinister aura emanated from their form, freezing the Thompsons in place, rendering them powerless against the overwhelming terror. With a slow, deliberate movement, the intruder raised a hand, revealing a glint of metal, a menacing blade gleaming in the moonlight. The Thompsons recoiled, their minds racing with a chilling realization. They were facing imminent danger. A cacophony of emotions surged within them: fear, desperation, and a futile attempt to comprehend the inexplicable nightmare unfolding before their eyes. Their frantic attempts to reason with the intruder were met with a cold, unyielding silence. Time seemed to stand still as the intruder inched closer, the glint of the blade dancing ominously in the light. The Thompsons backed away, their backs against the wall, the echoes of their racing heartbeats drowning out all other sounds. In a sudden burst of movement, the intruder lunged forward, the blade flashing with deadly intent. A gut-wrenching scream tore through the night, but the source was unclear. Was it the Thompsons or the intruder? In the heart-stopping chaos that ensued, the Thompsons fought desperately to fend off the assailant, their survival instincts kicking into overdrive. A struggle ensued. A harrowing battle between life and death played out in the confines of their home. Adrenaline surged through their veins as they fought for their lives, grappling with the unknown assailant in a desperate bid to escape the impending doom. But the intruder seemed unrelenting, driven by a chilling determination that transcended reason. Amidst the chaos and terror, the Thompsons' world narrowed to a single instinct: survival. With a surge of strength born from sheer desperation, they managed to break free, darting towards the front door. Their pounding footsteps echoed through the house as they raced toward the escape that lay beyond the threshold. As they flung open the door, relief and hope flickered briefly within them, only to be shattered by the shocking sight that awaited them outside. A sinister congregation of hooded figures stood on the porch, surrounding the house in a dark display of silent malevolence. The chilling realization dawned upon the Thompsons. The horror they faced was not a singular event, but part of a hauntingly orchestrated nightmare. Before they could comprehend their dire predicament, the assailant caught up, their menacing presence casting a long, ominous shadow over the Thompsons. In a final, horrific moment, the blade struck, and darkness consumed the Thompsons, their anguished cries echoing through the desolate night. A night eternally shrouded in unanswered questions and unimaginable terror. Story 3. It was a typical evening in the serene neighborhood of Maplewood. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the houses. The street lamps flickered to life, illuminating the quiet streets. Inside one of the cozy homes, the Washingtons were just finishing up dinner when the doorbell rang. Samantha, curious about the unexpected visitor at this hour, glanced at her husband David before heading to the door. She peered through the peephole, finding no one in sight. Puzzled, she noticed the faint glow of the Ring doorbell camera. A notification pinged on her phone. The Ring app displayed a live feed of their doorstep. Squinting at the screen, Samantha saw a man standing there, barely visible in the darkness outside. His features were obscured by a shadowy hood, and his eyes seemed fixed on the camera as though he knew he was being watched. Unease settled in her chest and she called out to David. "Someone's at the door, but they're not there anymore. It's just a man in a hoodie staring at the camera." David joined her, checking the app. "That's odd. Maybe he left. Let me check outside." He stepped onto the porch, scanning the area, but the street remained empty. He returned, reassuring Samantha that there was no one around. As they settled back inside, Samantha couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Hours passed, and the incident faded into the back of their minds until the doorbell rang again. This time they hurried to the camera, but the feed showed only darkness. No one was there. Uneasy, they decided to call the police, suspecting a potential prank or suspicious activity. Minutes crawled by, and just as the police were about to arrive, the doorbell rang again. Samantha's heart raced as she hesitated, contemplating whether to check the feed. David rushed to the door, peeking cautiously outside. But there was no one in sight, just the cold, empty night. Before they could gather their thoughts, a chilling realization dawned on them. The doorbell camera hadn't rung. It was the old-fashioned doorbell this time. A cold feeling ran down Samantha's back. The unease escalated into fear. They exchanged nervous glances, their minds racing with uncertainty and dread. Something was terribly wrong. Their unease turned into terror when they heard faint scratching noises coming from the front door. It was as if someone was dragging their fingernails along the wood, creating a scary symphony of dread. Suddenly the scratching ceased, replaced by a haunting silence that echoed through the house. Samantha and David exchanged a fearful glance, frozen in place, their minds consumed by fear and uncertainty. Then a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence, echoing from the hallway. They rushed towards the sound, only to find the source, the Ring doorbell camera. The live feed displayed a horrifying scene. A figure cloaked in darkness, their face twisted into a dark and scary grin, staring directly into the camera. As Samantha and David recoiled in horror, the door behind them slammed shut, trapping them in the chilling darkness. The last thing they heard was a whisper, barely audible but unmistakably chilling. "I've been waiting for you." In the heart of Crestview, Emily Foster's once peaceful life spiraled into a harrowing nightmare. It all began with subtle, unnoticeable occurrences, tiny ripples in the fabric of her reality that culminated into a crescendo of fear. The uneasy feeling of being watched had become a constant companion, an ever-present shadow that lingered in Emily's periphery. She attempted to rationalize these unsettling sensations, a trick of the mind, the stress of an overburdened life. But the gnawing discomfort persisted. As the weeks progressed, Emily's unease escalated. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, transformed into a battleground of apprehension. Strange anomalies plagued her. A picture frame askew, a misplaced trinket, and dark testament to the intruder's unseen presence. Desperate to dispel her growing paranoia, Emily confided in her friends and family. Their initial concern turned to skepticism, attributing her fears to stress-induced paranoia or the overactive imagination of an isolated mind. Her attempts to seek aid from the authorities yielded equally fruitless results. Without tangible evidence or a discernible threat, Emily's concerns were met with polite assurances but no tangible resolution, leaving her ensnared in the clutches of her escalating terror. Nights descended into a haunting ritual of sleepless torment. Every shadow in her apartment morphed into sinister omens, every creak of the floorboards a harbinger of impending dread. Sleep eluded her, replaced by endless hours of restless vigilance. The city's bustling streets offered no respite from the suffocating sensation of being followed. Each glance over her shoulder revealed nothing out of the ordinary, yet the relentless feeling of an unseen presence persisted, a disconcerting reality that cast a shadow over her daily life. Seeking solace in the mundane, Emily buried herself in her work, hoping to escape the tendrils of fear that coiled around her existence. But even in the sanctity of her professional endeavors, the feeling of being watched followed, an unwelcome companion that lurked just beyond the realm of perception. Every trivial noise, an unexpected click, a rustling breeze, sent tremors of fear rippling through her fragile composure. The once familiar environment of her apartment became a labyrinth of fear, a place where her sanity teetered on the edge of an unsettling abyss. With a fervent determination to reclaim control, Emily installed security cameras throughout her apartment, a desperate attempt to capture proof of the elusive stalker's intrusion. She scrutinized the footage obsessively, hoping for validation, yet the recordings offered nothing substantial. An uneventful loop of mundane existence, devoid of any sign of the elusive presence that tormented her. As the days bled into nights and the haunting sensation of being watched intensified, Emily's world narrowed into a suffocating bubble of fear. She became hypervigilant, her every waking moment consumed by the relentless pursuit of an unseen entity. Then, one ominous evening while immersed in her work, a strange revelation halted Emily in her tracks. An ominous figure, shrouded in darkness, looming just beyond her apartment window. Panic surged through Emily's veins, a heart-pounding realization that her fears had materialized. Summoning every ounce of courage, she approached the window, her hand trembling as it reached for the curtains. Drawing the curtains aside, she braced herself for the alarming confrontation. But the space outside lay vacant. The menacing figure had dissolved into the night, leaving behind an unsettling void that deepened Emily's sense of dread. The encounter rattled Emily's fragile reality. The creepy presence that had haunted her existence had briefly revealed itself, only to vanish into the enigmatic shadows, leaving behind a palpable aura of malevolence. In the aftermath of this unsettling encounter, Emily's world crumbled, her sense of security shattered by an elusive stalker that lurked beyond the veil of perception. With every passing moment, the unexplained nature of her tormentor's pursuit seemed to deepen her entanglement in an unending cycle of fear and uncertainty. Haunted by the realization that some terrors existed beyond the reach of sight, Emily found herself trapped in a nightmarish existence, forever haunted by an unseen stalker, an enigmatic presence forever entwined with her harrowing reality. Story 2. In the quaint town of Brooksville, nestled amidst rolling hills and meandering roads, an old tale lingered in the whispers of locals, the legend of the vanishing hitchhiker. For Peter, a journalist known for his insatiable curiosity, this local lore became a puzzle he was determined to solve. The story had captivated his attention, weaving its enigmatic threads into the fabric of his thoughts. Seeking answers, Peter scoured through archives, interviewed residents, and roamed the back roads, hoping to unearth the truth behind the mysterious vanishing hitchhiker. On a moonlit evening, while navigating the quiet stretches of highway on the outskirts of Brooksville, Peter's eyes caught a glimpse of a solitary figure standing at the roadside. A young woman draped in darkness, her silhouette echoing the description of the elusive hitchhiker from the town's folklore. Curiosity mingled with caution as Peter slowed his car to a stop. He pondered the legend's warnings, cautioning against giving the hitchhiker a ride. But the allure of unraveling the mystery outweighed his apprehensions. The woman, introducing herself as Rachel, possessed an air of melancholy that intrigued Peter. Her eyes held a depth of sorrow, a hidden story yearning to be unraveled. Engaging in conversation, Rachel spoke in cryptic phrases, alluding to a haunting past and a yearning for closure. As they journeyed along the darkened roads, Rachel's demeanor shifted. A palpable tension clouded the atmosphere. She cast furtive glances as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows behind them, an unspoken urgency permeating her movements. Peter's unease heightened, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. He probed Rachel with gentle persistence, hoping to unearth the truth concealed within her cryptic narrative. Suddenly, Rachel demanded Peter to halt the car at an isolated spot, insisting it was near her intended destination. The location mirrored the bizarre settings of the legend, an isolated stretch of road immersed in an unsettling silence. A sense of déjà vu washed over Peter, a realization that they stood at the crossroads between myth and reality. Rachel's departure felt unnervingly similar to the legend's account, a hitchhiker vanishing into the night. Peter's journalistic curiosity wrestled against his apprehensions. Torn between investigating further and yielding to superstition, he grappled with conflicting instincts. Resolving to quench his insatiable quest for truth, Peter stepped out of the car, cautiously scanning the desolate surroundings. The silence was deafening, the darkness suffocating, and an unspoken fear clawed at his rationality. As he scanned the vicinity, a whisper lingered in the air, a disembodied voice that seemed to echo from the shadows. Beware the road less traveled. The hair on Peter's neck stood on end, his heart racing with an inexplicable dread. A primal instinct urged him to retreat, but the allure of uncovering the truth propelled him forward. In a desperate search for answers, Peter ventured deeper into the darkness, his footsteps echoing against the silent road. The night seemed to thicken around him, an ominous cloak veiling the truth he so fervently pursued. Suddenly, a bone-chilling sensation coursed through Peter's veins, an unsettling feeling of being watched. His breath hitched, senses on high alert, as he turned to head back to his car. But the darkness had intensified, the surroundings unfamiliar, as if the landscape had shifted in his absence. Panic seeped into his consciousness, and a realization dawned upon him. Peter was lost in an unrecognizable labyrinth of roads that seemed to twist and turn, defying logic and reason. With every step, the sense of disorientation grew, a disconcerting feeling of being ensnared in an inexplicable maze. The whispers of the legend echoed hauntingly in his mind, intertwining with the enigmatic warning. The road less traveled held secrets that defied comprehension. A glimmer of light appeared in the distance, offering a beacon of hope amidst the engulfing darkness. Peter hastened toward it, his heart pounding with the anticipation of salvation from the unsettling labyrinth. But as he approached, the light revealed an abandoned, creepy house, a broken-down structure nestled at the crossroads of the desolate roads. The air hung heavy with an odd silence that pierced Peter's soul. Unease crept over him, an instinctual apprehension warning against venturing closer. Yet an irresistible pull egged him on, compelling him to explore the decrepit abode that stood as a haunting sentinel in the desolate night. Every creak of the decaying structure echoed like a haunting whisper, a prelude to the dark climax of the enigmatic legend. Peter's breaths came in shallow gasps, his senses on high alert as he cautiously stepped onto the porch. The floorboards groaned under his weight, the dilapidated structure groaning in protest against the intrusion. A palpable tension saturated the air, as if the house itself harbored a malevolent secret. In the silence, a sense of impending horror loomed over Peter, an insidious realization that the legend might not merely be a tale woven from folklore. Every shadow seemed to morph into a spectral presence, every rustle an omen of terror. A sudden gust of wind howled through the broken windows, stirring the silence into a cacophony of unsettling whispers. Peter's heart pounded in his chest, the whispers reverberating like a haunting melody that resonated with the unexplained. In that moment, an abrupt silence enveloped the desolate house, a deafening absence of sound that amplified Peter's dread. Shadows danced ominously, coalescing into grotesque apparitions that encroached upon his sanity. A primal fear gripped Peter as a realization dawned. The enigmatic legend held a sinister truth that surpassed rational comprehension. The whispers transformed into a ghostly symphony, a haunting crescendo of terror that shattered the fragile veil between reality and myth. In the end, a haunting figure materialized from the shadows, a spectral presence that embodied the essence of the vanishing hitchhiker. Peter's terrified gaze locked onto the apparition, a silent witness to the inexplicable convergence of the legend with the fabric of reality. The spectral figure seemed to transcend the boundaries of the physical realm, a haunting embodiment of the enigmatic hitchhiker who had vanished into the night. Its ethereal form exuded in strange aura, a haunting reminder that some mysteries were not meant to be unraveled. And in that harrowing moment, Peter's fate became entangled with the haunting legend, leaving behind a legacy of fear that would forever echo through the darkened roads and silent whispers of Brooksville, a tale of curiosity leading to a horrifying encounter with the unexplained. In the bustling city of Millbrook, Claire, a young professional, enjoyed a routine life until a series of unnerving phone calls disrupted her tranquility. It all began innocuously, muffled breathing and faint static noises followed by an abrupt disconnection. Claire dismissed it as a glitch in the line, attributing it to the city's erratic phone services. As the days passed, the calls persisted, escalating in frequency and intensity. A scary discomfort settled within Claire, an unspoken fear that lingered long after each unsettling interaction. The weird caller remained enigmatic, concealing their identity behind the veil of silence. No discernible voice or coherent words, just an unsettling symphony of static and indistinct breathing that creeped Claire out. Determined to quell her rising apprehension, Claire sought solace in rational explanations, faulty connections, anonymous pranks, or an overactive imagination. Yet the persistent dread gnawed at her sanity. She confided in her friends seeking reassurance, but their dismissals only fueled her escalating paranoia. Alone in her apartment, the phone became an instrument of terror, its ring inducing a sense of dread that echoed through her existence. Claire's once peaceful routine crumbled under the weight of relentless anticipation. Every ring of the phone pierced her tranquility, a harbinger of the unnerving calls that spiraled into a haunting obsession. Desperate for reprieve, Claire sought refuge in the police, hoping for intervention. But without a discernible threat or coherent message, her pleas fell on deaf ears, leaving her entangled in an enigma she couldn't comprehend. Nights grew unbearable as sleep eluded her. The persistent dread of the next call lingered, a specter haunting her waking moments and encroaching upon her dreams. In a fateful twist, the calls took an ominous turn. Bizarre whispers replaced the customary silence. Vague murmurs emerged from the static, elusive words that taunted her sanity. Claire's unraveling became apparent to those around her. Her once vibrant demeanor faded into a shadow of anxiety and paranoia, a haunting reminder of the unnerving calls that plagued her existence. Determined to regain control, Claire embarked on a relentless quest for answers. She delved into archives, scouring records for any semblance of clues, but the enigmatic caller remained elusive. As her pursuit intensified, so did the sinister nature of the calls. The whispers evolved into menacing threats, strange warnings that echoed through the receiver, each call plunging Claire deeper into a nightmarish abyss. Haunted by the enigmatic caller's elusive threats, Claire's reality blurred between delusion and terror. Every passing moment became a nerve-wracking ordeal, her once familiar world overshadowed by an ever-present sense of foreboding. In an alarming crescendo, the caller's final message shattered Claire's fragile reality. A chillingly familiar voice whispered, "I'm closer than you think." Panic seized her, rendering her world into a kaleidoscope of fear and desperation. With trembling hands, she unplugged the phone, hoping to sever the connection to the haunting caller. But as the silence enveloped her apartment and terrifying realization dawned, footsteps echoed from within her own home. Claire's blood ran cold as she realized the haunting words had been a terrifying truth all along. The caller had been inside her home, lurking in the shadows, closer than she could have ever imagined. The dark revelation of the caller being inside her home froze Claire in terror. Her breath hitched, heart pounding violently against her chest as a cold sweat dampened her skin. Panic surged through her veins, urging her to flee, but fear had rooted her to the spot. Silence draped over the apartment, thick and suffocating. Every creak, every whisper of movement amplified, resonating with malevolence. The once familiar space now seemed foreign, haunted by the specter of an unknown assailant. With trembling hands, Claire fumbled for her cell phone, her lifeline to the outside world. She dialed emergency services, her voice quivering as she whispered frantic pleas for help, detailing the unnerving calls and the chilling realization of the intruder's presence. The dispatcher's voice offered a semblance of reassurance amidst Claire's mounting terror. She held her breath, straining to listen for any indication of the intruder's movements, her heart pounding in sync with each passing second. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Claire awaited the arrival of the authorities. Every shadow morphed into a potential threat, each creak of the floorboards a harbinger of impending danger. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, drawing nearer with ominous intent. Claire's chest tightened, her pulse thundering in her ears as the sound of her own heartbeat drowned out rational thought. The apartment door burst open, flooding the room with blinding light, and uniformed officers rushed in, their reassuring presence a brief respite from the terror. They scoured the apartment, finding no sign of the intruder. As the officers conducted their investigation, Claire's shaken state intensified. She recounted the series of unsettling calls, the escalating threats, and the bone-chilling realization of the caller's proximity. Despite her distress, the officers found no evidence of forced entry or any indication of the mysterious caller's presence. Claire's recounting of the disturbing events bore the mark of genuine fear, but without tangible proof, her claims were met with skepticism. Hours dragged by, the officers concluding that it might have been a prank call or a case of paranoia induced by stress. Claire felt a sinking despair as their dismissive stance left her vulnerable and terrified, trapped in a reality tainted by the unknown. Alone once more, Claire sought refuge in the solace of a friend's apartment. Sleep evaded her, the echoes of the caller's haunting words resonating in her mind, a sinister reminder of the intruder's malevolent presence. Days became nights of restless anxiety. Claire's once vibrant spirit withered under the weight of relentless dread. She attempted to resume her routine, but the specter of fear loomed over every moment, casting shadows of suspicion and paranoia. The menacing calls ceased, leaving Claire in a silence that offered no solace. Her world had become a labyrinth of apprehension, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a haunting echo of the past. Her friends' concern grew palpable as Claire's mental state deteriorated. They urged her to seek professional help, fearing the toll the harrowing experience had taken on her well-being. Therapy sessions offered temporary relief, a sanctuary where Claire found respite in recounting her ordeal. The therapist's reassurances were a flicker of hope amidst the darkness, but the specter of the caller's intrusion lingered, an unresolved enigma that tormented her psyche. Weeks turned into months, and Claire attempted to rebuild her shattered life. She moved to a new apartment, hoping for a fresh start, yet the haunting memory of the intrusion lingered like an unshakable shadow. Her vigilance became her constant companion, an ever-present reminder of the vulnerability that had once shattered her sense of security. Every ringing phone, every unexpected noise reignited the dormant fear, threatening to plunge her back into the abyss of terror. In a twist of fate, one fateful evening as Claire settled into her new sanctuary, a familiar vibration stirred from her phone. A number she hadn't seen in months flashed on the screen. Her heart lurched with dread, the numbing fear resurfacing as she stared at the screen in disbelief. The phone rang, each ring echoing like a death knell, a haunting reminder of the unresolved terror that had tormented her life. Trembling, Claire hesitated before answering, her voice barely above a whisper. She hoped for closure, an end to the lingering nightmare that had plagued her existence. "Hello, Claire," a chillingly familiar voice hissed from the other end. "I told you I was closer than you think." A paralyzing terror gripped Claire, her breath catching in her throat. Before she could react, the line went dead, leaving behind an unsettling silence that echoed with malevolence. In that horrifying moment, Claire realized that the caller's insidious presence hadn't vanished. It lingered, an inescapable specter lurking within the shadows, an eternal reminder of the scary intrusion that had forever tainted her life. And so Claire's fate became a haunting tale whispered among those who had known her, a tragic narrative of unending fear, a legacy born from the enigmatic caller's insidious torment. Nestled amidst the undulating hills, the Whispering Inn stood as a sentinel of antiquity, its aged facade whispering tales of the past. As the storm raged on, 3 weary travelers sought refuge within its time-worn walls. Sophia, the intrepid journalist yearning for respite from relentless investigations, found herself drawn to the inn's enigmatic aura. William, the retired professor, harbored an insatiable curiosity that compelled him to seek shelter within its mysterious confines. Ethan, the wandering artist captivated by the inn's haunting allure, sought inspiration in its history. The travelers were greeted by the innkeeper, Mr. Graves, a stoic figure with a penetrating gaze that seemed to pierce through the veils of time. Despite his genial facade, an underlying reserve simmered beneath his composed demeanor, hinting at deeper, untold mysteries. The inn's interior exuded a quaint charm, a rustic parlor adorned with faded tapestries, antique furnishings, and a fireplace crackling with warmth. But an unsettling tension hung in the air, an ominous dread that tugged at the edges of the traveler's consciousness. As the night deepened, each traveler retired to their rooms, unaware of the inn's sordid history, a tapestry woven with vanishing guests and inexplicable occurrences that stained the inn's legacy. Sophia, her investigative instincts piqued by the inn's reputation, delved into the town's archives. Ancient records unveiled tales of Mr. Graves' ancestors, innkeepers whose names echoed through the annals of time, each entwined in a dark legacy of unexplained disappearances and dark phenomena that plagued the inn. Driven by curiosity, Sophia ventured into the hallways, drawn by the ethereal whispers that stirred in the dead of night. As she navigated the corridors, an inexplicable force guided her steps toward the heart of the inn. There, in the flickering shadows, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Graves, a spectral figure bathed in a mystic glow, murmuring incantations that resonated through the hallowed halls. Bewildered yet resolute, Sophia clandestinely observed his arcane rituals, tracing cryptic symbols etched into the inn's ancient foundations. Meanwhile, William, roused from his slumber by the unsettling whispers, sought solace in his scholarly pursuits. His diligent research unfurled a tangled web, a cryptic connection between Mr. Graves' lineage and the enigmatic disappearances of the inn's transient guests, forming a pattern that transcended generations. Ethan, the artist, captivated by the ambience, sought to capture the inn's haunting allure on canvas. His brushstrokes mirrored the spectral whispers that echoed through the corridors, each stroke a reflection of the inn's ethereal essence. As dawn approached, the travelers convened, their discoveries interwoven into a haunting tapestry of revelations. Their inquiries led to an alarming confrontation with Mr. Graves, whose steely gaze hinted at a darkness lurking within. In a scary confession, Mr. Graves divulged the innkeeper's ancestral ties to esoteric practices, dark rituals interwoven into the inn's very fabric. He revealed an ancient pact, forged generations ago, binding his lineage to perpetuate the enigmatic occurrences that plagued the Whispering Inn. The travelers' apprehension peaked as they realized their perilous predicament, trapped within the inn's insidious web, destined to become mere vessels for an unholy pact forged in antiquity. Despite their attempts to flee, the inn's spectral influence thwarted their escape, binding them to the dark legacy. As night descended once more, the travelers found themselves ensnared in a macabre ritual, a fate sealed by the inn's ancient curse. Their essence became conduits, vessels for a dreamy force that pulsed within the inn's walls. The spectral whispers grew in intensity, resonating with the sinister incantations echoing through the halls. Desperate, the travelers sought to unravel the pact's grip, their minds entwined in a struggle against an unseen force that transcended the physical realm. But the inn's ethereal embrace tightened, its dark tendrils ensnaring their very souls. Their screams merged with the haunting whispers, echoing through the corridors, lost to the annals of time, a testament to the unfathomable depths of the Whispering Inn and the inescapable fate that awaited those who dared to seek shelter within its haunted embrace. Story 2. Birchwood Grove held an enigmatic charm, but beneath its serene facade lay the Donovan family, once the epitome of suburban bliss, now ensnared by a haunting truth veiled in shadows. Emily's vanishing reverberated through the tight-knit community, its ripples unfurling into a tapestry of unanswered questions and palpable unease. The Donovan household, once resonant with laughter and warmth, now echoed with an ominous silence. Detective Marcus Hayes, renowned for his astute investigations, found himself entangled in the intricate threads of the Donovan family's secrets. Each passing day brought a heavier burden as the elusive truth eluded his grasp, a constant reminder of the enigmatic case. Helen Donovan, once a paragon of grace and strength, crumbled beneath the weight of uncertainty. Behind closed doors, she grappled with tormenting questions that gnawed at her soul. Her anguish surfaced in sleepless nights haunted by fragmented memories and whispered regrets, a labyrinth of emotions she dared not confront. David Donovan, known for his affable demeanor, projected an illusion of normalcy despite the turmoil brewing within. His stoic facade concealed a turmoil rooted in an irrevocable decision made in the shadows of the past, a choice that threatened to unravel the family's carefully curated existence. Jake Donovan, Emily's younger brother, retreated into a silent realm, a realm of unspoken truths and pent-up emotions. His once vibrant spirit waned, consumed by the burden of knowledge he struggled to articulate, a haunting secret etched into his conscience. As Detective Hayes delved deeper, the tapestry of the Donovan family's history began to unravel. A tale woven with misgivings, concealed resentments, and a deeply buried incident clouded by shame. The tension within the household escalated, the fractures in familial relationships deepening, a palpable rift eroding the once solid foundation of the Donovan family. Unspoken grievances festering beneath the surface, threatening to implode with devastating consequences. Detective Hayes, relentless in his pursuit of truth, uncovered fragments of the family's past, a mosaic of darkness concealed beneath a thin veneer of normalcy. Hidden from prying eyes lay an event, a sinister occurrence that, if unearthed, threatened to shatter the Donovan family's fragile existence. In the quiet solitude of his office, Detective Hayes pieced together the chilling revelation, the connection between Emily's disappearance and a macabre event from the family's history. The unsettling truth gnawed at his consciousness, sending shivers down his spine. The haunting finale unraveled, a revelation that pierced through the facade of the Donovan family's suburban existence. Emily's vanishing was not a random act but a meticulously orchestrated event, a sacrificial pact forged in the depths of the family's darkest secret. Detective Hayes, haunted by the revelation, found himself standing at the precipice of a truth too horrifying to comprehend. The Donovan family's macabre pact, an act of unspeakable darkness, echoed through the corridors of the once happy home, forever tainted by a sinister truth buried beneath the veil of suburban normalcy. The investigation concluded, but the secrets unearthed in Birchwood Grove lingered, a haunting testament to the depths one family went to conceal the monstrous truth at its core. A truth lost to the winds of time, forever concealed within the sinister embrace of a tranquil suburbia. Birchwood Grove, with its winding lanes and peaceful facade, masked the enigma brewing within the Donovan household, a family ensnared in a labyrinth of secrets, each more than the last. Emily's disappearance cast a pall over the once harmonious neighborhood. The frantic search and relentless media attention engulfed the Donovan family in a whirlwind of despair. Detective Marcus Hayes, renowned for his unyielding pursuit of truth, shouldered the weight of the investigation, a daunting task complicated by the family's tightly guarded secrets. Helen Donovan, a pillar of resilience, weathered the storm of Emily's vanishing with a facade of stoic composure. Behind closed doors, however, she grappled with a storm of her own, a tempest of shattered memories and unanswered questions that haunted her nights, leaving her tormented and sleepless. David Donovan, a man known for his amiable nature, attempted to maintain an air of normalcy despite the turmoil festering beneath the surface. But the mask of tranquility he wore grew heavier with each passing day, weighed down by the shadow of an unspeakable past. Jake Donovan, Emily's younger brother, retreated into solitude, a silent bystander to the family's disarray. His once expressive eyes now mirrored a deep-rooted sorrow, concealing a truth he dared not voice, a haunting secret he carried like an anchor around his heart. As Detective Hayes peeled back the layers of the Donovan family's history, a harrowing narrative unraveled, a tale of shattered trust and hidden wounds. The dark undercurrents of the family's past lay obscured, entwined with an incident veiled in secrecy, a malignant event that cast a long shadow over their lives. Within the Donovan home, festering grievances festered, a silent discord that resonated in the strained conversations and the heavy atmosphere that pervaded the once happy abode. Unspoken words hung in the air like a dense fog, suffocating the familial bonds that once tethered them together. Detective Hayes navigated the maze of deceit, uncovering fragments of the family's darkest secret, a scary incident that hinted at a pact forged in desperation, obscured by layers of denial and shame. In the quiet solitude of his office, Hayes pieced together the chilling revelation, the link between Emily's inexplicable disappearance and a cryptic event buried within the Donovan family's history. The truth gripped his senses, sending a shiver down his spine as he realized the magnitude of the dark forces at play. The unsettling conclusion emerged, a revelation that pierced through the facade of suburban tranquility. Emily's vanishing was not an accident, but a calculated act, a sacrificial agreement forged within the murky depths of the Donovan family's most dreadful secret. As the investigation reached its culmination, Detective Hayes found himself standing at the precipice of a truth too horrifying to comprehend. The Donovan family's sinister pact, an act steeped in darkness, reverberated through the hallways of the once joyful home, forever tarnished by a sinister truth buried beneath the guise of normalcy. The investigation concluded, but the secrets unearthed in Birchwood Grove lingered, a haunting testament to the depths one family went to conceal a monstrous truth, a truth lost to the winds of time, forever concealed within the sinister embrace of a seemingly serene suburbia. Story 3. The Crimson Research Institute stood as a monolith amidst the bustling city, a beacon of scientific exploration veiled in mystery. Dr. Sarah Miller, a luminary in the realm of sleep research, embarked on an audacious venture to unlock the enigmatic depths of hypnagogic states, a realm where the boundaries between wakefulness and slumber blurred. Volunteers, lured by the allure of scientific discovery and monetary compensation, flocked to enroll in the groundbreaking study. Among them, Emily, a graduate student seeking respite from financial constraints, stepped forward, curious but unaware of the haunting trajectory her participation would take. The laboratory, a hushed sanctuary adorned with intricate machinery and faint lighting, served as the stage for the audacious experiment. Emily reclined upon the bed, surrounded by a labyrinth of wires and electrodes, while Dr. Miller meticulously monitored the EEG readings from the adjoining control room. As the sun relinquished its reign to the night, Emily embarked on the intrepid odyssey into the hypnagogic state, a liminal realm where reality was painted in the hues of dreams. Initially benign, her dreams manifested as fragmented glimpses, a hodgepodge of fleeting scenes intertwined with a lurking unease. Minutes dissolved into hours as Emily's consciousness navigated the labyrinthine corridors of her subconscious. Her dreamscape morphed into a surreal tapestry, a twilight realm woven with strands of her deepest fears and latent anxieties. Shadows danced on the periphery, their spectral forms coalescing into ominous apparitions that unsettled her soul. In the monitoring room, Dr. Miller scrutinized the EEG readings with clinical precision, observing subtle oscillations in Emily's brainwave patterns, a testament to the kaleidoscopic shifts in her subconscious terrain. An unexpected spike in neural activity prompted a discreet alarm within the vigilant researcher. Within Emily's subconscious domain, an intangible darkness coalesced, an abstract entity pulsating with an ominous energy. Its spectral presence cast an oppressive veil over her dreamscape, inducing an inexplicable sense of unease. The fragile boundary between reality and reverie blurred, hurling Emily into a nightmarish tableau, a labyrinthine realm bereft of escape. Grotesque visions assailed her senses, an amalgamation of haunting whispers, surreal apparitions, and an imminent sense of dread. Struggling against the nightmarish miasma, Emily's subconscious waged an arduous battle against the malicious entity's relentless grip. Yet her attempts to sever the ethereal shackles proved futile, ensnared within the convoluted machinations of her own mind. In the monitoring room, Dr. Miller wrestled with ethical restraint as Emily's distress intensified. The experimental protocol imposed a stringent non-intervention policy until the experiment's designated conclusion, testing the boundaries of the researcher's professional discretion. With a heavy heart, Dr. Miller reluctantly initiated the awakening protocol, a calculated surge of stimuli intended to wrench Emily from the clutches of the evil dreamscape. Emily's eyes flew open, her body convulsing as she jolted upright, forcibly yanked from the strange reverie. Gasping for air, disoriented and trembling, her terror-stricken gaze met Dr. Miller's concerned eyes through the observation window. As the electrodes were delicately detached, Emily struggled to articulate her harrowing ordeal, an incomprehensible terror that lingered at the edge of her consciousness. Her trauma, a haunting residue of the experiment, carved a sinister imprint that refused to dissipate. Days stretched into endless nights, yet Emily remained ensnared by fragments of the evil dreamscape, a psychological wound etched into the fabric of her mind. The experiment, transcending the boundaries of scientific inquiry, had thrust Emily into a harrowing labyrinth from which she could not liberate herself, an insidious menace forever etched within the recesses of her consciousness. In the aftermath, Emily's nights were tormented by fragmented visions, haunting echoes of the malevolent dreamscape. The sanctuary of sleep became a treacherous abyss, a realm where the spectral evil lurked, perpetuating an unending cycle of torment. Despite seeking solace in therapy and counseling, the spectral entity's haunting grip remained unrelenting. Emily grappled with the ephemeral line between reality and the remnants of her subconscious nightmares, forever haunted by the ethereal evil unleashed within the confines of the Crimson Research Institute. The desolation of her sleepless nights cast a pall over Emily's life, robbing her of tranquility and peace of mind. Every moment was shadowed by the spectral remnants of the experiment, a haunting ordeal that lingered as a constant reminder of the unfathomable depths of the human mind and the terrors that lay within. In the digital landscape of social media, Jenny found solace. An introvert by nature, she sought companionship through online forums, connecting with like-minded individuals who shared her interests in literature and art. Among her online acquaintances was a user named Eclipse23. Their interactions began innocently enough, a shared admiration for classic literature, discussions about favorite paintings, and the comfort of exchanging thoughts without the pressure of face-to-face encounters. Jenny found herself drawn to Eclipse23's captivating intellect and engaging conversations. As their online friendship blossomed, Eclipse23 shared tales of their life, a mysterious and compelling narrative that piqued Jenny's curiosity. Yet despite their frequent exchanges, Eclipse23 remained an enigma, refusing to divulge personal details or share any photos. Intrigued by the air of mystique surrounding Eclipse23, Jenny yearned to unravel the veiled identity behind the screen. Her initial trust waned, replaced by a growing unease, a nagging suspicion that Eclipse23 wasn't who they claimed to be. Despite her reservations, Jenny couldn't deny the pull of their online connection. She hesitated to confront Eclipse23, fearing the dissolution of the friendship that had become an integral part of her routine. One fateful evening, as the clock struck midnight, Eclipse23 sent an urgent message, a cryptic invitation to meet in person. Jenny's pulse quickened, torn between apprehension and an insatiable curiosity to unveil the mysterious persona behind the screen. Against her better judgment, Jenny agreed to the clandestine encounter, choosing a well-lit cafe nestled within the heart of the city for their meeting. Anxiety churned in her stomach as she waited, scanning the room for a glimpse of Eclipse23. A figure approached, cloaked in a dark hoodie, their face concealed beneath the shadows of the hood. The air crackled with tension as Eclipse23 slid into the seat opposite Jenny, the faint lighting obscuring their features. "Finally we meet," Eclipse23's voice resonated, laced with an unsettling undertone that made Jenny freeze up. Their conversation, once lively and engaging, now felt strained and unnerving. Eclipse23's cryptic remarks and evasive answers only fueled Jenny's discomfort, shattering the illusion of camaraderie she had envisioned. As the evening wore on, Jenny's unease transformed into a gnawing sense of dread. A realization dawned upon her. The person sitting across from her was nothing like the charming intellectual presence she had come to know online. A wave of apprehension washed over Jenny, prompting her to hastily excuse herself from the unsettling encounter. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and relief as she fled the cafe, the feeling of unease lingering like a sinister shadow. Later that night, upon returning to the safety of her home, Jenny received a message from Eclipse 23, a revelation that turned her blood cold. "You shouldn't have run away, Jenny. I know where you live now." Panic surged through her veins and she glanced around her apartment, heart pounding in her chest. She locked the doors and windows, her mind racing with horrifying possibilities. How had Eclipse 23 discovered her address? Minutes turned into agonizing hours as Jenny remained huddled in her apartment, the fear of an imminent threat consuming her thoughts. She considered contacting the authorities, but without concrete evidence or a real identity, it felt futile. Just as she dared to hope for a respite from the terror, a faint knock echoed from her front door. Her breath caught in her throat as she tiptoed toward the peephole, heart pounding with trepidation. A hooded figure stood outside, their face concealed within the shadows. She heard a voice that emanated from beyond the door. "I told you, Jenny, you can't escape me." With trembling hands, Jenny frantically reached for her phone to call for help, but the lights flickered ominously, plunging the apartment into darkness. Her heart raced as the reality of her vulnerable state dawned upon her. The hooded figure's laughter reverberated through the hollow silence, growing louder as it crept closer to the door, a grim reminder of the horrifying truth. Eclipse 23's deception had transformed into a menacing reality, a terrifying encounter with an unknown and sinister presence. The night ended in terror, a harrowing reminder that behind the facade of anonymity lay the lurking danger of deceptive connections. Jenny's pulse quickened, her breath shallow and rapid as she huddled in the corner of her darkened apartment. The hooded figure's ominous presence lingered outside her door, an alarming reminder of the dangerous depths lurking behind the facade of her online acquaintance, Eclipse 23. Her phone lay just out of reach, its screen flickering in the blackness that enveloped the room. Jenny's mind raced, grappling with fear and desperation. The realization of her vulnerability in the face of this unknown threat made her pulse rise. As she strained to control her panicked breathing, a sudden movement caught her eye, a faint glow emanating from her laptop on the coffee table. It flickered, the screen illuminating the room with an odd blue hue. Jenny's heart raced with a mix of dread and curiosity. Despite her apprehension, she inched closer, her fingers trembling as she reached for the laptop. The device seemed to beckon her, offering a lifeline amidst the encroaching darkness. With a hesitant touch, Jenny opened the laptop, revealing the screen displaying her chat history with Eclipse 23. A flurry of messages appeared, each more alarming than the last. "You can't hide forever, Jenny. I know everything about you." The words glowed ominously on the screen, a stark reminder of the looming threat outside her door. Jenny's mind raced with fear, grappling for a solution amidst the overwhelming dread. In a desperate attempt to seek help, she accessed a messaging app, typing frantic pleas for assistance to a friend. Her fingers trembled on the keys, the urgency of her situation propelling her forward. But as she hit send, the screen froze, the cursor blinking ominously before it vanished altogether. Panic surged through Jenny as she realized her only hope of reaching out was now lost. The sound of footsteps echoed outside her door, growing closer with each passing second. Jenny's breath hitched, her heart pounding in her chest as she searched desperately for an escape route. She scanned the room, her eyes darting to the window. With a surge of determination, she lunged toward it, fumbling to open the latch in a frenzied attempt to flee the encroaching danger. As she pushed the window open, a gust of cold night air rushed in. But before she could clamber out, a voice pierced the silence from behind her. "I told you, Jenny, there's nowhere to run." A hand, cloaked in darkness, seized her shoulder, wrenching her backward with unnerving strength. Jenny's scream echoed through the room as she struggled against the relentless grip, her fight for escape futile against the overpowering force. The hooded figure towered over her, their presence suffocating, their identity shrouded in the darkness. A sense of dread enveloped Jenny as she realized the sheer helplessness of her situation. The hooded figure leaned closer, their breath against her ear as they whispered, "It's too late now." In a horrifying moment, Jenny was dragged into the unknown abyss beyond her apartment, leaving behind only echoes of her piercing screams that faded into the night. The dark shroud of mystery and terror remained, an unsettling reminder of the perils that lurked within the maze of online connections. The night ended in an abyss of fear, leaving behind a mystic legacy of the dangers concealed behind deceptive encounters in the digital realm. Story 2. The town of Glenview nestled alongside a serene river, its waters shimmering under the moonlit sky. Yet a pall of fear had settled upon the community due to a series of unexplained drownings. Young men had been found dead in the river, each time marked by a graffiti of a sinister smiley face near the scene. Among the concerned townsfolk was Luke, a college student with an insatiable curiosity. The mysterious deaths had captured his attention, and he found himself drawn into investigating the incidents. Armed with a determination to uncover the truth, Luke delved into the strange circumstances. He combed through local archives and interviewed witnesses, hoping to unravel the perplexing sequence of events. His quest led him to discover that the victims had no apparent connections, leaving authorities baffled. However, a common thread emerged: the unmistakable graffiti of a grinning face, scrawled near the riverside where each tragic incident occurred. Luke's inquiries led him to a group of friends who were closely acquainted with the latest victim, Caleb. They spoke of a jovial young man, full of life, whose tragic demise remained a haunting mystery. Determined to dig deeper, Luke ventured alone to the riverbank, the moon casting an ethereal glow upon the rippling waters. As he examined the graffiti etched onto the nearby wall, a cold feeling struck him. The smiley face seemed to mock the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. Night after night, Luke returned to the riverside, hoping for a breakthrough. Each time, the sense of dread grew stronger, an ominous feeling that whispered of unseen danger lurking in the shadows. One fateful evening, as Luke lingered near the water's edge, a faint splash echoed in the stillness. He turned, his heart pounding, to behold a figure emerging from the depths of the river. The figure, shrouded in darkness, approached with an unhurried gait. A silence enveloped the scene, broken only by the gentle lapping of the river against the shore. Before Luke could react, the stranger stepped into the moonlight. His face bore an unsettling grin, mirroring the infamous graffiti that had haunted the town. "Curiosity leads to unfortunate ends," the stranger spoke in a voice that sent a jolt down Luke's spine. Terrified, Luke stumbled backward, his mind racing with fear and disbelief. He turned to flee, but his feet felt as heavy as stone. Panic clawed at his chest as he realized the sinister truth. He was face to face with the mysterious killer. In a swift, horrifying moment, Luke was plunged into the embrace of the river. The icy waters enveloped him, dragging him into the dark depths below. The moon bore witness to the scene, a solitary figure disappearing beneath the surface, leaving behind only ripples on the tranquil river. The following day, Luke's absence stirred concern among the townspeople. A search ensued along the riverbank, but no trace of him was found, save for a faintly drawn smiley face etched onto a nearby wall. The mystery deepened, leaving the town of Glenview haunted by the unexplained disappearances and the smiley faces that seemed to mock their efforts to uncover the truth. As Luke's disappearance echoed through Glenview, a ripple of fear surged within the community. The mystery of the smiley face killer deepened, casting a shadow of unease over the once tranquil town. Concerned whispers filled the air, and the local authorities redoubled their efforts to unravel the sinister puzzle that had claimed the lives of young men. Among those haunted by Luke's vanishing was his friend Sarah. She couldn't shake the feeling of guilt, believing she had unwittingly led Luke into danger by sharing their investigation findings. Determined to uncover the truth and honor Luke's memory, she delved into his notes and research. Sarah retraced Luke's steps, revisiting the riverside where he had last been seen. The moon's pale glow reflected off the calm waters, casting a luminescence across the scene. As she scrutinized the graffiti on the wall, a sense of unease struck her. The smiley face seemed to leer, an ominous presence marking the site of tragedy. Driven by both fear and resolve, Sarah continued her quest for answers. She sought solace in the stories of those who knew the victims, hoping to find a hidden connection that could shed light on the inexplicable deaths. Her investigation led her to an elderly man named Mr. Hastings, a longtime resident of Glenview known for his reclusive nature. Rumors hinted at his knowledge of the town's history, and Sarah believed he might hold clues to the elusive killer's identity. With cautious determination, Sarah visited Mr. Hastings at his secluded cottage on the outskirts of town. The elderly man greeted her with a mix of curiosity and apprehension, his eyes betraying a hidden sorrow that mirrored the town's unease. After gaining his trust, Sarah delicately broached the subject of the smiley face killer. To her surprise, Mr. Hastings' expression darkened and a tremor passed through his frail frame. He spoke in hushed tones, revealing fragments of a long-buried tale. Decades ago, Glenview had been a different place, its past cloaked in shadows of a tragic incident. Mr. Hastings recounted the story of a group of young friends, vibrant and carefree, whose lives were intertwined with the river's serenity. However, a series of unexplained drownings had shattered the town's peace. "There was darkness within the waters," Mr. Hastings murmured, his voice quivering with memories of bygone days. "Something dark that yearned for the souls of the innocent." Sarah's heart raced as Mr. Hastings unveiled an old journal, its weathered pages recounting occurrences that bore an uncanny resemblance to the recent deaths. The journal spoke of strange symbols etched near the river, symbols that mirrored the haunting smiley face graffiti found today. Driven by a desperate need for closure, Sarah pored over the journal's cryptic entries. Amidst the faded ink, she stumbled upon a strange passage, a ritual to appease the river's vengeful spirit, an ancient entity believed to exact retribution on those who dared to unravel its secrets. Doubt and fear gnawed at Sarah's resolve, but the need to honor Luke's memory outweighed her trepidation. Armed with newfound knowledge, she ventured back to the river, clutching the journal as her only guide. The moon hung low in the night sky as Sarah approached the water's edge, the faint murmur of the river an ominous backdrop. She hesitated, feeling an unseen force urging her to turn back. But the memory of Luke spurred her forward. With trembling hands, Sarah followed the journal's instructions, reciting the ancient incantation in a voice that wavered with uncertainty. A sense of dread loomed, the air thick with a strange anticipation. As the final words left her lips, the river stirred, its surface rippling with an otherworldly energy. A gust of wind swept through the air, carrying with it a guttural whisper. Suddenly, the water churned violently, and from its depths emerged a figure, a spectral apparition cloaked in shadows, bearing a grotesque semblance of a scary grin. Sarah's heart raced, terror coursing through her veins as the apparition materialized before her, its form twisted and ethereal. It bore an unmistakable resemblance to the smiley face, a spectral representation of the ancient entity that haunted Glenview's waters. In a moment of horrific realization, Sarah understood the truth. The smiley face wasn't the mark of a killer, but a warning, an ancient symbol guarding a vengeful spirit's domain. The apparition fixated its ghastly gaze upon her, an inscrutable expression etched upon its spectral visage. As fear immobilized her, the spirit extended an ephemeral hand toward Sarah, beckoning her toward the river's dark embrace. A bone-chilling scream pierced the night as Sarah's silhouette vanished into the swirling depths, swallowed by the river's ominous embrace. The moon bore witness to the harrowing event, a lone figure disappearing beneath the waters, leaving behind only ripples on the surface, a grim testament to the haunting legacy of Glenview's spectral guardian. Story 3. The midsummer night settled over the suburban neighborhood like a shroud, casting elongated shadows across the neatly trimmed lawns and quiet streets. Emily, a seasoned babysitter known for her calm demeanor, settled in for the evening at the Johnsons' house. The Johnsons were attending a late anniversary dinner, leaving their 2 children, Lucy and Jake, under Emily's care. As the children were tucked into bed, Emily busied herself with homework while occasionally checking on the sleeping youngsters. A muffled ring from her phone startled her. Glancing at the screen, she frowned. An unknown number blinked back at her. Shrugging it off as a wrong number, she muted the ringer and returned to her studies. Minutes later, the phone vibrated again. Emily glanced at it, her curiosity piqued. Another call from the same unknown number. This time she answered cautiously. "Hello?" Silence greeted her on the other end. Frowning, she repeated her greeting, only to be met with continued silence. A cold feeling ran down her back, but she dismissed it as a prank call from some bored teenager. Resuming her tasks, Emily heard the phone ring again. She hesitated but answered once more. This time, a raspy voice whispered, "I can see you." Her breath hitched. "Who is this?" The line went dead. A cold sweat prickled Emily's skin as she scanned the house. The uneasy feeling lingered as she forced herself to believe it was just someone's idea of a sick joke. She convinced herself to check the house thoroughly before alerting the authorities. She tiptoed from room to room, heart pounding in her chest. The unnerving quiet of the house magnified every creak of the floorboards. Emily's nerves were taut as she finished her search, finding nothing out of place. Just as she was about to return to her studies, the phone buzzed again. Trembling, she answered, her voice quivering. "Who's there?" The same silence followed until a guttural chuckle echoed through the line. "You won't find me. I'm much closer than you think." The terror clawed at Emily's throat. She stumbled backward, dropping the phone. Her mind raced, urging her to flee, but she couldn't leave the children alone. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she rushed to the children's room, intent on protecting them. But as she entered, she heard a voice, a low, sinister whisper, from beneath Lucy's bed. "You shouldn't have come here." Emily's blood ran cold. She spun around to see a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness, a twisted grin etched across their face. Panic surged, but she had to protect the children. Summoning her courage, Emily lunged toward the intruder, grappling with them in a frenzied struggle. The room echoed with desperate cries and the thud of bodies colliding against the walls. Amidst the chaos, Emily managed to wrestle the intruder to the ground. Gasping for breath, she turned on the light. Her blood ran icy. Lying on the floor was a deranged man, wild-eyed and grinning maniacally. His appearance was disheveled, and a glint of madness sparkled in his eyes. Suddenly, the police sirens blared outside, their flashing lights casting a glow into the room. With a final surge of strength, the intruder lunged at Emily, a glinting knife in his hand. The world spun. Emily's scream mingled with the shrill sound of the children's cries as the blade descended. The police burst through the door, but it was too late. They found Emily lying lifeless on the floor, a victim of a twisted stranger's madness. The police burst through the door, their boots thudding against the hardwood floor, but it was too late. They found Emily lying lifeless on the floor, a victim of a twisted stranger's madness. Her body was still warm, the scene a tableau of horror that would haunt the officers for years to come. The intruder lay motionless nearby, a grim reminder of the violent struggle that had unfolded in the once peaceful children's room. The children, Lucy and Jake, huddled together in a corner, tears streaming down their faces, their innocent eyes witnessing a nightmare no child should endure. Paramedics rushed in, but their efforts were futile. Emily's life had been ruthlessly snatched away, leaving a void in the hearts of those who knew her and a lingering sense of dread in the community. The investigation unfolded in the following days, revealing dark details. The intruder had been lurking within the house for hours, concealing himself expertly while tormenting Emily with menacing phone calls. He had carefully planned this macabre intrusion, preying upon the unsuspecting babysitter and the innocent children. As the news spread, the neighborhood was gripped by fear. Parents clutched their children closer, and whispers of safety precautions echoed through the streets. The Johnsons, devastated by the tragedy that unfolded in their home, grappled with guilt and sorrow. The police combed through evidence, piecing together the twisted motivations of the intruder. They discovered a history of mental illness and a string of past incidents that hinted at the perpetrator's escalating violence. However, it offered no solace to Emily's family or the traumatized children who had witnessed the horror firsthand. The community rallied in support, organizing vigils and fundraisers to honor Emily's memory and to aid the grieving family. The incident served as a wake-up call, prompting discussions on safety measures and the importance of vigilance, even in seemingly secure neighborhoods. Months passed, but the wounds remained fresh. The Johnsons moved away, unable to bear the haunting memories that lingered within the walls of their once happy home. Emily's legacy endured in the hearts of those who knew her, a beacon of kindness and warmth that the world had lost to senseless brutality. Her tragic fate stood as a stark reminder that evil often wore the guise of normalcy, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains nestled an old, weathered cabin shrouded in mystery and tales of sinister happenings. It stood isolated, embraced by the dense foliage that whispered secrets of generations past. The cabin's desolation had earned it a reputation among locals as a place of unspoken dread. Among the curious wanderers was Emily, an adventurous soul who sought solace in the serene beauty of nature. Drawn by tales of the forgotten cabin's haunting aura, she embarked on a solo journey into the depths of the Appalachian wilderness. As Emily ventured deeper into the labyrinth of trees, a sense of isolation enveloped her. The sun cast elongated shadows across the forest floor, creating an ominous path that led her to the elusive cabin. Upon arrival, the cabin appeared as though frozen in time. Its wooden panels weathered by time and neglect, windows boarded up as if concealing a cryptic history. The air crackled with an unsettling energy, sending goosebumps along Emily's skin. Determined to unravel the mysteries shrouding the cabin, Emily cautiously stepped inside. The interior was a time capsule, an abandoned sanctuary of forgotten memories. Dust danced in the rays of light that filtered through cracks in the boarded-up windows. Despite the ambiance, Emily found herself inexplicably drawn to the cabin's haunting beauty. She set up camp inside, hoping to unearth the secrets it held. As night descended upon the wilderness, a chilling silence enveloped the cabin. Emily lit a solitary lantern, casting dim, flickering shadows that danced upon the walls. The hours ticked by, the silence disrupted only by the occasional rustling of leaves outside. Emily's attempts to uncover the cabin's mysteries proved futile, and a sense of unease gnawed at her thoughts. Just as she settled into a fitful sleep, an unsettling noise echoed through the cabin, a faint, rhythmic tapping against the window. Emily's eyes shot open, her heart pounding in her chest. She dismissed it as the wind or a curious animal, attempting to quell her rising unease. Yet the tapping persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. It transformed into an incessant, deliberate rapping against the window pane. Summoning courage, she cautiously approached the window. What she saw froze her blood in terror. Silhouetted against the moonlit forest stood a figure, its face obscured by the darkness, rhythmically tapping a long, gnarled finger against the glass. Fear clenched Emily's throat as she stumbled backward, her mind racing with inexplicable terror. The figure continued its haunting rhythm, its presence an unsettling harbinger of unknown horrors. Torn between fleeing and confronting the inexplicable entity, Emily's resolve wavered. She sought refuge by the fireplace, clutching the lantern as her only source of solace in the encroaching darkness. As the night dragged on, the cabin seemed to echo with malevolent whispers, the walls reverberating with unheard murmurs that pierced the silence. Emily's terror grew, a suffocating grip tightening around her chest. Then a sudden change. The tapping ceased, plunging the cabin into an alarming stillness. Emily's heart raced, her senses on high alert, as a bone-chilling silence enveloped the cabin, more ominous than any sound. Just as she dared to hope for an end to the haunting ordeal, a disembodied voice echoed from the shadows, and dark whisper that pierced through the darkness, chilling her to the core. "Leave this place, Emily. You are not welcome here." The voice resonated with an otherworldly quality, laced with a warning that reverberated through her very soul. Panic seized Emily as she realized she was not alone in the desolate cabin. Dread washed over her, an insidious realization that she had stumbled upon something beyond comprehension. In a desperate bid to escape the encroaching malevolence, Emily bolted toward the cabin door, her heart racing with frantic fear. But the door remained stubbornly sealed shut, refusing her escape, as if the cabin itself conspired to keep her captive within its walls. The haunting whispers grew louder, an invisible force pressing upon her, suffocating her will to resist. Shadows danced maniacally across the walls, contorting into grotesque shapes that taunted her sanity. As Emily grappled with her terror, a bone-chilling realization dawned upon her. She had unwittingly trespassed into a realm beyond understanding, a domain bound by malevolent forces that defied human comprehension. In a last desperate attempt to break free, Emily unleashed a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the desolate forest. But her cries were swallowed by the suffocating silence, leaving her at the mercy of the sinister entity that lurked within the forgotten cabin's walls. And so, Emily became another haunting tale whispered among the locals, a cautionary reminder of the forgotten cabin's unspoken horrors. Forever lost to the depths of the Appalachian wilderness, Emily's panicked screams reverberated through the desolate forest, swallowed by an unforgiving silence. The cabin seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, its walls closing in on her, trapping her in an abyss of terror. As her voice faded into the night, Emily's mind raced with desperate thoughts. She frantically searched for a means of escape, her trembling fingers clawing at the boarded-up windows, hoping for a glimpse of the outside world. Yet the windows remained sealed, offering no respite from the chilling embrace of the cabin's claustrophobic confines. The silence became deafening, a tangible presence that suffocated her senses. Desperation coursed through Emily's veins as she scanned the room for any semblance of salvation. In a last-ditch effort, she frantically rifled through the cabin's decrepit belongings, seeking something, anything that might offer a way out. Amidst the aged belongings, she discovered an ancient journal, its leather-bound cover worn and weathered. With trembling hands, Emily flipped through its pages, hoping for answers buried within the faded ink. The journal belonged to a previous inhabitant of the cabin, chronicling unnerving accounts of unexplained occurrences, whispers in the night, strange apparitions, and a pervasive sense of dread that plagued the writer's every waking moment. In a chilling entry, the writer recounted a harrowing experience, a confrontation with an entity that dwelled within the cabin's walls. The entity, described as a malevolent spirit, trapped its victims in a nightmarish limbo, feeding on their fear and despair. Emily's breath hitched as she realized the chilling truth. She had stumbled upon a realm tethered to the spectral plane, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred. With a newfound sense of urgency, Emily clutched the journal to her chest, determined to defy the entity's grasp. She gathered her resolve, casting aside the paralyzing fear that threatened to consume her. As she prepared to confront the unseen malevolence, the cabin's atmosphere shifted. An icy chill swept through the air, and the flickering lantern dimmed to a mere whisper of light. Shadows danced frenetically across the walls, coalescing into grotesque shapes that loomed menacingly. Whispers echoed from the darkness, a chorus of tormented voices that clawed at Emily's sanity. With sheer determination, Emily uttered words of defiance, a shaky voice that reverberated with unwavering resolve. "I don't belong to this place. Release me from your grasp." Her words seemed to echo in the abyss, silencing the haunting whispers for a fleeting moment. The oppressive malevolence recoiled, a testament to Emily's unwavering courage. In that fleeting respite, a glimmer of hope ignited within her, a surge of determination to break free from the entity's sinister hold. She cast a desperate gaze toward the door, mustering every ounce of strength to challenge the spectral force that ensnared her. With a trembling hand, Emily reached for the doorknob, her heart pounding with frantic urgency. To her surprise, the door creaked open, revealing a faint glimpse of the moonlit forest beyond. A rush of exhilaration surged through her as she pushed against the force that held her captive. With every ounce of strength, she fought against the entity's malevolent grip, inching closer to the threshold of freedom. Just as she dared to hope for escape, a bone-chilling laugh echoed from the shadows, freezing her movements. The entity's sinister voice resounded through the cabin, a haunting reminder of its relentless power. "You will never leave, Emily. You belong to this place now." As the entity's laughter reverberated through the cabin, Emily's hope waned. She found herself trapped in a nightmarish limbo, the elusive freedom she sought slipping through her grasp. In a last act of defiance, she flung the journal out of the door, a desperate plea for someone to uncover the forgotten cabin's malevolent secrets. And so, the night consumed Emily, leaving her entwined in the haunting legacy of the forgotten cabin. A cautionary tale whispered among wanderers, forever lost to the depths of the Appalachian wilderness. Story 2. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Elm Street, the house at number 64 stood like a monolith of mystery and intrigue. It was the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, an elderly couple who'd resided there for decades. Yet the air around their home bore in weird stillness that unsettled the neighbors. Among the residents was the Cunningham family, who lived next door. Alex Cunningham, an inquisitive teenager, noticed peculiarities surrounding the Wilsons. He observed Mr. Wilson's erratic behavior, the furtive glances, the hasty retreats indoors upon noticing neighbors, and the infrequent, creepy noises emanating from their residence. Curiosity gnawed at Alex's mind, and he confided in his parents about the unsettling occurrences. His father dismissed them as the quirks of aging neighbors, but Alex's instincts refused to relent. With his suspicions piqued, Alex embarked on a clandestine investigation. He kept a vigilant eye on the Wilsons, noting their peculiar habits and the palpable aura of secrecy surrounding their home. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's intrigue transformed into obsession. He staked out the Wilsons' house, studying their patterns and scrutinizing every minuscule detail, determined to uncover the truth. One fateful evening, as the moon cast a ghostly pallor over Elm Street, Alex noticed an unusual occurrence. The Wilsons, usually reclusive, appeared to be hurriedly loading boxes into their car, their faces etched with anxiety. Alex's heart raced as he seized the opportunity to delve deeper into the mystery. Under the veil of darkness, he stealthily crept toward the Wilsons' house. Cautiously peering through a partially open window, he glimpsed an unsettling sight. The interior was in disarray, the furniture overturned and the walls adorned with bizarre scribblings. Mr. Wilson seemed agitated, muttering to himself in a frenzied manner. His wife, Mrs. Wilson, appeared distressed, her eyes brimming with fear. Before Alex could discern more, a scream pierced the night, sending a cold rush down his back. The Wilsons abruptly vanished from sight, leaving the house cloaked in a silence. Determined to unravel the enigma, Alex decided to explore the abandoned Wilson residence the following day. With trepidation gnawing at his gut, he cautiously stepped over the threshold. The interior was a tapestry of chaos and inexplicable symbols etched into the walls, a cryptic language of madness. As Alex ventured deeper into the house's belly, a sense of fear enveloped him. A disquieting revelation awaited him in the basement. An ancient-looking tome lay open, its pages adorned with peculiar runes and esoteric diagrams. As he deciphered the cryptic writings, an ominous realization dawned upon him. The Wilsons had been involved in unsettling occult practices. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the basement light, plunging Alex into suffocating darkness. Panic gripped him as he fumbled for his flashlight, the silence deafening in the absence of sound. Whispers echoed from the shadows, ethereal murmurs that seeped into Alex's consciousness. A malevolent presence materialized, a grotesque manifestation of his worst nightmares. Before he could react, an unseen force propelled Alex backward, slamming him against the wall. His screams echoed, drowned in the abyss of malevolence that enveloped him. And in that harrowing moment, the house at 64 Elm Street devoured its final victim, leaving behind an echoing silence that reverberated through the neighborhood, a chilling testament to the disturbing secrets hidden behind closed doors. Story 3. In the quaint town of Oak Ridge, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life was ordinary until whispers of the vanishing began. It all started with Mrs. Thompson, a beloved librarian who failed to show up one morning for her routine story hour. Concern rippled through the community like a silent tremor, prompting worried glances and speculative murmurs. Days turned into weeks, and the mystery of Mrs. Thompson's disappearance deepened. The town's gentle rhythms were disrupted by a palpable unease, an undercurrent of anxiety that coursed through the veins of Oak Ridge. Rumors circulated like tendrils of smoke, conjectures spun from the fragile threads of speculation. Was she abducted? Did she choose to vanish? No one could decipher the truth. In the heart of this turmoil stood Detective James Carter, a seasoned investigator with a penchant for unraveling enigmas. He arrived in Oak Ridge, his presence a beacon of hope to the distressed townsfolk. Determined and methodical, Carter delved into Mrs. Thompson's life, sifting through every fragment of information. Yet the case remained an enigmatic puzzle. The disappearance of Mrs. Thompson was soon followed by others, ordinary people from various walks of life, each one fading into the enigmatic mist of the unknown. Carter sensed a pattern, a subtle tapestry woven with threads of inexplicable occurrences. His meticulous investigation unearthed connections, trivial at first glance but weaving a sinister narrative that crept through the fabric of Oak Ridge's history. There were no signs of struggle, no ransom demands, no logical explanations. The vanishing was an enigma wrapped in a shroud of ambiguity. As Carter combed through witness testimonies and scoured through evidence, the unsettling truth began to unfold like a grotesque tableau. Residents grew wary, haunted by the specter of uncertainty lurking in the shadows. They locked doors, avoided deserted alleys, and cast furtive glances over their shoulders. The once vibrant town square now wore a veneer of desolation, a ghostly echo of its former vitality. Carter found himself consumed by the investigation, sleepless nights spent poring over files, chasing elusive leads that seemed to slip through his fingers like fine grains of sand. The weight of the unsolved mystery bore down on him, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. One frigid evening, as the town lay cloaked in a scary silence, Carter received an anonymous tip. It led him to the outskirts of Oak Ridge, to a battered barn nestled amid overgrown foliage. The detective's pulse quickened as he cautiously ventured inside, the musty air thick with unease. Moonlight filtered through broken beams, casting elongated shadows that danced along the decaying walls. In the center of the barn lay a crude altar, adorned with faded symbols etched in crimson paint. Carter's heart pounded in his chest as he scrutinized the cryptic markings, a chilling realization dawning upon him. Before he could process the revelation, a sudden gust of wind extinguished his flashlight, plunging him into suffocating darkness. Panic clawed at his throat as whispers echoed from unseen corners, insidious murmurs that toyed with his sanity. A voice, cold and hollow, slithered through the void. "You seek answers, detective. Embrace the truth." The darkness seemed to constrict around Carter, tendrils of fear coiling around his mind. He fumbled for his flashlight, fingers trembling as he struggled against an overwhelming sense of dread. In a desperate attempt to flee, he turned to leave but stumbled upon an unseen obstacle, crashing to the ground. And then silence. The townsfolk awoke to an empty Oak Ridge, a ghost town frozen in time. Detective Carter, the last beacon of hope, had joined the vanishing, leaving behind a chilling message etched into the town square's worn cobblestones. None shall unveil the veil of the vanishing. Embrace the void. In the wake of his disappearance, Oak Ridge became a fading memory, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones, a place lost in the sinister embrace of the unknown. And the enigma of the vanishing persisted, a macabre legacy etched into the annals of a forgotten town, where echoes of life dissolved into the abyss. Months passed, and the narrative of Oak Ridge's vanishing faded into the periphery of neighboring towns' conversations. It became a cautionary tale, a chilling fable parents whispered to their children as a reminder of the fragility of reality. Despite the town's desolation, the mystery lingered like an unspoken curse. People avoided Oak Ridge, believing it to be cursed, an echo chamber of the supernatural. The government declared the town off-limits, citing an unexplained phenomenon as grounds for quarantine. However, among the whispered tales of the town's demise, a shadowy figure emerged from the depths of obscurity. Dr. Evelyn Pierce, a brilliant but unconventional scientist specializing in the study of quantum anomalies, became fixated on Oak Ridge's inexplicable vanishing. Driven by a relentless thirst for truth, Dr. Pierce defied warnings and clandestinely ventured into the forbidden town. Armed with an array of specialized equipment and a mind unshackled by conventional reasoning, she sought to decipher the enigma that had eluded understanding. The once thriving streets of Oak Ridge were now draped in silence, a surreal stillness that clung to the buildings like a shroud. Dr. Pierce navigated cautiously, her steps echoing off the hollow facades of abandoned homes. Her investigation led her to the decrepit barn on the outskirts, the epicenter of the mystery. Despite the palpable sense of worry, Dr. Pierce pressed forward, her determination a beacon in the suffocating darkness. Inside the barn, she encountered remnants of Detective Carter's presence, scattered files, a broken flashlight, and the cryptic symbols etched upon the weathered altar. Dr. Pierce meticulously cataloged every detail, her scientific curiosity fueled by an insatiable desire to unravel the inexplicable. As she meticulously examined the symbols, a sudden resonance reverberated through the air, a dissonant frequency that reverberated in her bones. A surge of energy crackled through the barn, distorting the fabric of reality itself. The symbols glowed with an ethereal luminescence, casting an otherworldly hue upon the surroundings. Dr. Pierce's breath hitched as she realized the symbols weren't merely markings. They were a conduit, a gateway to an unknown realm beyond comprehension. In a reckless bid to unveil the truth, she activated a device designed to analyze the anomalies. The barn quaked, the air pulsating with an otherworldly resonance that transcended the boundaries of human comprehension. Reality fractured. The barn, once an abandoned husk, transformed into a surreal nexus, a convergence of disparate dimensions. Dr. Pierce's surroundings warped and twisted, a kaleidoscope of fractured realities coalescing into a mind-bending panorama. Time lost its semblance, folding and contorting upon itself. Dr. Pierce, ensnared in the maelstrom, witnessed echoes of Oak Ridge's vanished denizens, their spectral visages flickering like distant stars in an immeasurable void. In that moment of fractured existence, she glimpsed the truth. The vanishing wasn't a mere disappearance. It was a transcendence. Oak Ridge had become a fractured locus, a confluence where reality unraveled and souls transcended mortal constraints. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Pierce's consciousness teetered on the precipice of comprehension and madness. She yearned to unravel the enigma, yet the sheer enormity of the revelation threatened to devour her sanity. As swiftly as it began, the cataclysmic event reached its crescendo, and then silence. Dr. Evelyn Pierce, a lone sentinel in the turbulent sea of fractured realities, became another enigmatic fragment in the tapestry of Oak Ridge's vanishing. Her existence blurred into the ether, a fleeting anomaly lost in the labyrinth of dimensions. And Oak Ridge, a town lost to the annals of existence, remained a haunting reminder of the unfathomable mysteries that lurk at the edges of human understanding, where the veil of reality trembles and echoes fade into the cosmic abyss. I can't believe I'm sharing this story, but I feel like I have to. It's been 2 years and the memories still haunt me. It all started innocently enough with an online classified ad. It was a cold and rainy evening and I had just moved to a new city. My apartment was still a mess of unpacked boxes and I was feeling a bit lonely. I had heard about Craigslist and decided to give it a try to find some furniture and maybe make a friend in the process. I logged onto the website and started browsing through the furniture listings. Most of them were standard: couches, tables, chairs. But one ad caught my eye. It was titled "Antique Mirror. Must Go ASAP." The picture showed a beautiful ornate mirror that looked like it belonged in a Victorian mansion. The price was unbelievably low, and the seller claimed it needed to be gone that very night. Excited by the prospect of scoring such a great deal, I sent a message to the seller. Within minutes, I received a response from a woman named Margaret. She explained that her grandmother had passed away, and they were clearing out the old family home. The mirror was the last thing left, and they wanted it gone to make room for new memories. Margaret provided me with the address and insisted I come pick it up immediately. I was hesitant about going to a stranger's house so late at night, but the allure of the mirror was too strong. I decided to go, reasoning that it couldn't hurt to meet someone new. As I pulled up to the address Margaret had given me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The house was a dilapidated Victorian-era mansion, its paint peeling and the windows covered in dust and grime. I knocked on the door and it creaked open slowly, revealing Margaret, a frail elderly woman with a friendly smile. She led me through the house, the floorboards groaning with each step. The place was filled with antique furniture and dusty family portraits which seemed to watch my every move. Margaret took me to the mirror, which was even more beautiful up close. It was massive, easily 7 feet tall, with intricate carvings and a tarnished silver frame. Margaret explained that the mirror had been in her family for generations but had brought nothing but bad luck. She said her grandmother had claimed to see strange figures and hear voices when she looked into it. Margaret and her family had decided that it was best to part with it, and I, naively, agreed to take it off their hands. As we carried the mirror to my car, Margaret warned me to never look into it. She said it was cursed and had brought misery to her family. I laughed it off, thinking it was just an old superstition. I drove back to my apartment, excited about my new acquisition. I propped the mirror against the wall in the living room, feeling a strange thrill as I looked at my reflection in its aged glass. It was as if I had a connection to the past, to the generations of people who had gazed into it. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint whisper coming from the living room. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the voices grew louder and more distinct. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but they sounded like a chorus of anguished souls. Terrified, I rushed into the living room, and there, in front of the mirror, I saw them. Figures, shadows, distorted faces staring back at me. They were moving, reaching out toward me, their mouths opening in silent screams. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair, and the figures disappeared. For days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whispers, felt their presence. I knew I had to get rid of the mirror, but it seemed to have a malevolent hold on me. I would find myself standing in front of it, unable to look away, feeling as though I was being drawn into its depths. One evening, as I stared into the mirror, I saw her. A woman with long, flowing hair and sad, empty eyes. She reached out to me, and I felt an overwhelming urge to touch her hand. As I did, I was pulled into the mirror, my world turning upside down. I found myself in a dark, shadowy realm, surrounded by the figures I had seen before. They moaned and wailed, their faces contorted in agony. I screamed, but no sound escaped my lips. I tried to run, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. As I wandered through that nightmarish landscape, I realized that I was not alone. Margaret was there too, her eyes filled with regret. She explained that the mirror was a portal to the afterlife, a place where the souls of the cursed were trapped for eternity. She had brought me here to take her place, to bear the burden of the mirror's curse. I pleaded with her to help me escape, but she simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I was left alone, surrounded by the tormented souls, forever trapped in the cursed mirror. And that's how I ended up here, writing this story from the other side. I can't warn you enough. Never trust a Craigslist ad that seems too good to be true, and never underestimate the power of a cursed mirror. My only hope is that by sharing my story, I can save others from the same fate. So if you ever come across an ad for an antique mirror that needs to go ASAP, just remember my story and run the other way. You never know what horrors might be lurking on the other side. Story 2. It all began with a late-night internet browsing session, as most strange and unsettling stories do. I was searching for a part-time job, something to help me cover my mounting bills while I struggled to finish my degree. That's when I stumbled upon a peculiar Craigslist ad that would lead me down a twisted path into the unknown. The ad's title read, "Historical Tour Guides Wanted. Uncover the Past. Earn Cash." It piqued my interest immediately. As an aspiring history major, I had always been drawn to the mysteries of the past. The ad promised flexible hours and above-average pay, which was exactly what I needed. I clicked on the ad and read the description. It stated that a local historical society was looking for tour guides to lead visitors through an old cemetery with a rich and mysterious history. The tours were to be conducted after dark, adding an allure to the experience. The pay offered was nearly too good to be true, and my curiosity got the best of me. I decided to send an email expressing my interest. Within hours, I received a reply from a man named Mr. Holloway, the coordinator of the Historical Society. He explained that they were in dire need of guides for the cemetery tours, especially with Halloween approaching. He scheduled an interview for the following evening at a cafe near the cemetery. The email concluded with an ominous message: "Prepare yourself for a journey into the past." The next evening, I found myself sipping coffee in the corner of the cafe, waiting for Mr. Holloway. He arrived promptly at 8 p.m., his tall, slender figure draped in a long black coat. His eyes were hidden behind wire-rimmed glasses, and his thin lips curled into a smile as he approached. "Good evening," he said, extending a bony hand. "I'm Mr. Holloway. You must be Alex." I shook his hand and introduced myself. He ordered a cup of black coffee and settled into the chair opposite mine. The cafe's patrons paid us no mind, engrossed in their own conversations. Mr. Holloway began by describing the history of the cemetery, an ancient and sprawling burial ground that had been in use for over 2 centuries. He spoke of the many notable figures interred there, from war heroes to influential politicians, and he emphasized the importance of preserving their stories. Our goal, he explained, is to offer a unique experience to our visitors, one that not only educates but also makes their veins freeze. We want our tours to be memorable, unforgettable. As he spoke, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creep over me. The way he emphasized the word unforgettable sent a chill down my spine. I brushed it off as a simple case of nerves and continued to listen. Mr. Holloway detailed the responsibilities of the guides, which included memorizing historical facts, maintaining a respectful tone, and leading tours after dark. He explained that the darkness added an element of mystery to the experience, and that it was an essential part of the cemetery's allure. The tours will be conducted at night, under the light of the moon and lanterns, he said. It will be a true journey into the past, where the spirits of the past come alive. Spirits? The word hung in the air, unspoken but implied. I wondered if Mr. Holloway believed in ghosts, or if he was simply using the term metaphorically. After discussing logistics and pay, he handed me a black envelope, sealed with a wax stamp bearing the image of a skull. He instructed me to open it only when I was alone, as it contained sensitive information about the cemetery's history. As I left the cafe that night, the black envelope clutched in my hand. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. It was a strange job interview, but the prospect of uncovering hidden stories from the past was too enticing to pass up. I waited until I was back in my apartment to open the black envelope. The wax seal cracked easily, revealing a single sheet of paper with detailed instructions for my first tour. It was scheduled for the upcoming Friday night, and the meeting point was the cemetery's entrance. I spent the next few days immersed in research, learning about the cemetery's history and its famous residents. It had a rich and colorful past, filled with stories of love, betrayal, and tragedy. I couldn't wait to share these tales with the tour group and to step into the role of a historical guide. Friday night arrived, and I donned a dark suit and tie, fitting attire for a cemetery tour. The moon hung low in the sky as I made my way to the cemetery's entrance. I was met by Mr. Holloway, who was dressed in his signature black coat. "Ah, Alex," he greeted me with a smile. "I see you're prepared. Our guests will be arriving shortly." As if on cue, a group of people began to gather at the entrance. They were a diverse bunch, ranging from college students to elderly couples, all eager for a taste of history. Mr. Holloway introduced me as their guide, and I began to lead the group into the cemetery, lantern in hand. The night was clear and crisp, the air filled with the scent of fallen leaves. I spoke with enthusiasm as I led the group through the gravestones, recounting the stories of those who rested there. The guests listened attentively, their eyes wide with fascination. As the tour progressed, I noticed that some of the group members were growing increasingly uneasy. They whispered to each other and cast furtive glances over their shoulders. I couldn't blame them. After all, a cemetery at night could be an eerie place. But as we reached a particular section of the cemetery, the unease escalated into full-blown fear. The guests began to murmur and shuffle nervously, their lanterns casting wavering shadows. I turned to Mr. Holloway, who was watching with an inscrutable expression. "What's going on?" I whispered to him. He leaned in close and spoke in a hushed tone. "This section of the cemetery has a dark history, one that we save for the climax of the tour. It's said to be haunted, you see. Some visitors claim to have seen apparitions and heard whispers in the dark." I glanced around, my nerves on edge. The atmosphere had indeed changed, and a weird stillness hung in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Just as I was about to continue the tour, a loud, unearthly shriek echoed through the cemetery. The guests screamed in terror, and I instinctively swung my lantern in the direction of the sound. What I saw froze me in my tracks. A figure, pale and ghostly, stood among the gravestones. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its mouth opened in a silent scream. The guests scattered, fleeing in all directions, leaving me and Mr. Holloway alone with the apparition. "What is that?" I stammered, my voice trembling. Mr. Holloway's expression remained unreadable as he stepped toward the figure. "It's a part of the tour, Alex. A special attraction, if you will." I watched in horror as the figure drew closer, its spectral form hovering in the moonlight. It reached out a transparent hand, and Mr. Holloway took it, leading the apparition away into the darkness. I stood there, my heart pounding as the night returned to its usual silence. The guests had disappeared into the night, leaving me alone in the cemetery. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the memory of that night. The apparition, the screams, Mr. Holloway's cryptic words, all of it haunted my thoughts. I tried to convince myself that it had been a staged event, a part of the tour meant to scare the guests, but something about it felt real, too real. I decided to confront Mr. Holloway to demand an explanation for what had happened. I sent him an email requesting a meeting, and he agreed to meet me at the same cafe where we had first discussed the job. When I arrived, Mr. Holloway was already there, sitting in the same corner. He greeted me with a smile, though there was a tension in the air. "Alex," he began, "I'm glad you reached out. I wanted to discuss that night with you." I wasted no time. "What was that thing, Mr. Holloway, the apparition in the cemetery? Was it real?" He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I suppose it's time for the truth." Mr. Holloway proceeded to reveal the dark history of the cemetery, a history that had been concealed from the public for years. He explained that the cemetery had been the site of a clandestine group known as the Society of the Silent, a secret society that had dabbled in the occult and conducted bizarre rituals in the dead of night. The apparition, he told me, was a result of those rituals. It was the spirit of a member of the society, a man who had been trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. The society's rituals had unleashed forces beyond their control, and the cemetery had become a place of malevolent energy. "We used the legend of the society and the apparition as a way to add an element of fear to the tours," Mr. Holloway admitted. "It's a way to make the experience unforgettable, just as I promised." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The history of the cemetery, the society, and the apparition, all of it was true. It was a shocking revelation, and it left me with more questions than answers. I continued to work as a tour guide for the Historical Society, sharing the stories of the cemetery's past with the guests. The knowledge that the apparition was real added an authenticity to the tours, and visitors left with a sense of having witnessed something truly otherworldly. But the revelation had changed something within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, that the society's secrets ran deeper than I had been told. I couldn't resist the urge to uncover the truth. One night after the tour had ended and the guests had left, I approached Mr. Holloway with a determined expression. "I want to know more," I said. "I want to learn about the society, about the rituals they performed, and about the apparition. Will you show me?" Mr. Holloway hesitated, his gaze fixed on mine. "You must understand, Alex, that delving further into this may lead to consequences you cannot fathom. The society's secrets are dangerous, and the apparition is a force beyond our control." I nodded, my curiosity outweighing my fear. "I'm willing to take that risk." Mr. Holloway sighed and led me to a hidden chamber beneath the cemetery, a crypt that had remained sealed for centuries. Inside, he revealed a collection of old tomes and artifacts, each bearing the mark of the Society of the Silent. As I delved into the society's history, I learned of their obsession with unlocking the secrets of the afterlife. They had conducted forbidden rituals, made pacts with dark entities, and tampered with forces that should have remained untouched. It was a chilling account of a group consumed by their desire for knowledge and power. But what fascinated me most was the apparition itself. According to the society's records, the spirit had been a member who had attempted to communicate with the dead. In a misguided experiment, they had opened a portal to the other side, allowing malevolent entities to enter our world. The apparition was the result of their doomed ritual, forever trapped between the realms. As I delved deeper into the society's secrets, I felt a growing unease. The apparition's presence seemed to loom over me, as if it resented my intrusion into its dark history. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had awakened something malevolent. One night, as I conducted a tour through the cemetery, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The air grew heavy with tension, and the guests seemed to sense it too. I recounted the stories of the cemetery with a trembling voice, my lantern casting long shadows. As we reached the section of the cemetery where the apparition had first appeared, a chilling wind swept through the gravestones. The lanterns flickered, and the group grew silent, their eyes wide with fear. And then it happened. The apparition materialized before us, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It let out a blood-curdling scream, and the guests screamed in terror, fleeing in all directions. I stood frozen in place, unable to tear my gaze away from the spectral figure. It reached out a ghostly hand, and I felt a cold, numbing sensation envelop me. The world around me twisted and distorted, and I found myself standing in a shadowy realm. The apparition before me. It spoke, its voice a haunting whisper. "You have uncovered our secrets, Alex. You have trespassed where you should not have." I stammered, trying to find words, but fear had rendered me speechless. The apparition's eyes bore into mine, and I felt a surge of dread. "You must make a choice, Alex. You can choose to forget what you have learned, to leave this place and never return. Or you can choose to stay and become a part of our history, forever trapped between the realms." I had no choice but to agree, to erase the memories of the Society's secrets and the apparition from my mind. The apparition released its hold on me, and I found myself back in the cemetery, alone in the darkness. I returned to my apartment that night, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The memories of the Society's secrets had been erased, but the knowledge of what had transpired lingered like a shadow in my subconscious. I continued to work as a tour guide, but the apparition's presence haunted me. It watched from the shadows, a constant reminder of the choices I had made. The burden of the Society's secrets weighed heavily on my shoulders, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the cemetery. As the years passed, I struggled to move on with my life, haunted by the memories of that night. I knew that the apparition was always there, waiting in the darkness, a specter of the past that could never be forgotten. And so I share this story as a warning to those who seek to uncover the secrets of the past, to those who are drawn to the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. Some mysteries are better left unsolved, some secrets better left buried. For the apparition of the cemetery still watches, and its malevolent presence lingers, a reminder of the choices we make and the price we pay for our curiosity. Story 3. I had always been a skeptic when it came to online classified ads. Scammers, spammers, and worse lurked behind every deal too good to be true. But I was broke, desperate, and my college graduation was looming like a dark storm cloud, ready to rain on my dreams. That's how I found myself scouring Craigslist one evening for part-time work. The clock on my laptop read 3 a.m. as I stumbled upon an ad that seemed promising. "Paid research opportunity. Help needed urgently," it proclaimed. The headline was catchy, but the post itself was rather vague, mentioning only that a private research firm was willing to pay top dollar for participants in a series of experiments. The compensation promised was enough to pay off my mounting student loans and maybe even have some left over for celebration. With a mix of curiosity and desperation, I clicked on the ad, revealing an email address to contact for more details. I fired off an email, not expecting a response until the next day. However, within minutes, I received a reply from a sender named Researcher X. The email was concise and cryptic. "Meet at the abandoned warehouse on 42nd Street at 11 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone. Wear black." I was skeptical, of course. The warning bells in my head clanged loudly. This was undoubtedly shady, maybe even dangerous. But I couldn't shake the idea that this could be the break I needed. I knew it was a risk, but I decided to go armed with the address, a pocket knife, and a smartphone that could dial 911 at a moment's notice. The day passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. I tried to focus on my last few college classes, but my mind kept wandering to the mysterious ad. Who were these researchers, and what kind of experiments required secrecy and a midnight meeting at an abandoned warehouse? As evening fell, I donned a black hoodie and pants, wanting to blend into the shadows. I shoved the pocket knife into my back pocket and made my way to 42nd Street. The rain had begun to drizzle, and the city streets were dark and quiet. I felt like a character in a noir film, my heart pounding with every echoing step. The warehouse came into view, a towering, decrepit structure with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. The entrance was a rusted door ajar, revealing nothing but darkness inside. I hesitated for a moment, my fear trying to take control. But I had come this far. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The interior of the warehouse was even more ominous than the exterior. The only light came from a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long dancing shadows across the grimy floor. The air was musty, filled with the scent of decay and dampness. I cautiously advanced further into the building. I could hear faint voices in the distance, echoing through the cavernous space. Following the sounds, I eventually stumbled upon a small room. A table stood in the center, surrounded by 4 chairs. Seated in one of them was a figure shrouded in darkness. "Take a seat," a voice said, low and raspy. I couldn't discern whether it was male or female. I hesitated for a moment before complying, sitting across from the mysterious figure. The dim light made it impossible to see their face. They pushed a folder toward me, and my trembling hands reached for it. "Inside, you'll find a document detailing the experiment," the voice continued. "You have the right to leave at any time. But once you read the document, you'll understand the importance of what we're doing here." With that, the figure fell silent, leaving me alone with the folder. I opened it slowly, my eyes scanning the typed pages. The document explained that this research was focused on fear and the human psyche. It outlined a series of tasks I would be required to complete, each designed to provoke fear in varying degrees. As I read further, I realized that this was no ordinary psychological experiment. The tasks included encounters with strangers in dark alleys, navigating through abandoned buildings, and even participating in staged accidents. The goal was to measure my physiological responses to fear-inducing scenarios and to assess my ability to remain calm under pressure. I should have left right then and there, but my curiosity and the promise of a substantial payment compelled me to stay. I signed the agreement at the end of the document, acknowledging the risks and agreeing to the terms of the experiment. Over the next few weeks, I found myself thrust into a series of increasingly unsettling situations. I was constantly under surveillance, my every move monitored by the researchers. They provided me with a smartphone and instructed me to document my experiences through video and voice recordings. The first task was relatively benign, a late-night walk through a park where I encountered a suspicious-looking stranger. I recorded the encounter as instructed, feeling a surge of fear as the stranger approached, only to be relieved when nothing untoward happened. But as the days passed, the experiments grew more sinister. I was sent to a derelict psychiatric hospital where I navigated dark, labyrinthine corridors and encountered remnants of its grim past. My heart raced as I heard distant whispers and faint cries that seemed to emanate from nowhere. Next, I was instructed to board a deserted subway car at the end of the line and ride it until I reached an unfamiliar station. The platform was empty, the station devoid of life, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My unease deepened as I noticed shadowy figures lurking in the tunnels, their eyes gleaming with malevolence. I recorded it all, my voice trembling as I narrated my experiences. But with each passing day, the fear grew harder to contain. The sleepless nights, the constant surveillance, and the uncertainty of what was real and what was part of the experiment began to take its toll on my sanity. Then came the night that would change everything. I received an email from Researcher X, containing an address and a single instruction. "Visit this location alone. This is your final task." I had grown increasingly paranoid, and a sense of impending doom hung over me like a dark cloud. The address led me to an isolated, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The night was moonless, and the only light came from the pale glow of distant streetlights. I entered the warehouse, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Inside, the scene was unlike anything I had encountered before. The room was vast, with towering stacks of wooden crates, their contents hidden in the shadows. In the center of the room stood a single chair, and above it a solitary light bulb dangled from a frayed cord. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. Something felt profoundly wrong about this situation. But the promise of payment, the desire to finally be free of this nightmare, pushed me forward. I took a seat beneath the swaying light bulb, and as if on cue, it flickered to life, casting a harsh, unnatural glow. From the shadows emerged a figure dressed in black, their face concealed beneath a hood. "You've done well," the figure said, their voice cold and emotionless. "But there's one final test we must conduct." The figure produced a small leather-bound book and placed it on the crate in front of me. It was old and weathered, its pages filled with faded text and illustrations of arcane symbols. "You must read from this book," the figure commanded. "Recite the words exactly as they are written, and your ordeal will be over." I glanced at the book, my unease growing. The symbols and text were like nothing I had ever seen, and a foreboding sense of dread washed over me. "What is this?" I stammered, my voice trembling. The figure leaned closer, their hooded face inches from mine. "It is your final test," they hissed. "Recite the words or remain trapped in this nightmare forever." I had no choice. Fear had brought me to this point, and fear would see me through to the end. I opened the book and began to read, my voice shaking as I spoke the incomprehensible words. As the last syllable left my lips, a deafening roar filled the room. The very air seemed to tremble, and the walls of the warehouse began to shake. I clung to the chair, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness, and the figure before me disappeared. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling as I activated its flashlight. The warehouse was empty, the chair and the book gone. I was alone, surrounded by the looming crates and the oppressive silence. I stumbled to my feet and made my way to the exit, my mind reeling. The experiments were over, but the fear remained, a festering seed of dread that had taken root in my soul. I returned to my apartment, the weight of what had transpired settling over me like a shroud. I never received the promised payment, and I never heard from researchers again. The entire experience remained shrouded in mystery, a nightmare from which I could never truly escape. To this day, I am haunted by the knowledge that I willingly subjected myself to those experiments, that I read from that accursed book. I can't help but wonder what I unleashed that night, what malevolent forces I unwittingly invoked. And as I write this, I can't shake the feeling that I am still being watched, that the shadows that once lurked in the corners of my vision are now closing in, ready to claim me once and for all. So if you ever come across a mysterious Craigslist ad promising quick cash for participating in a research study, heed my warning. Run the other way. Some fears are better left unexplored, some doors better left unopened, and some experiments better left untested. The desert stretched out endlessly around Jack as he sped down the lonely highway. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the barren landscape. He had been driving for hours, and his gas gauge was edging dangerously close to empty. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he scanned the horizon for any sign of a gas station. Just as panic began to set in, he spotted a dimly lit sign in the distance. It read, "Desert Oasis Gas and Mart, 5 miles ahead." Jack let out a sigh of relief and pushed his foot down on the accelerator. He couldn't afford to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere. As he approached the gas station, it became clear that Desert Oasis had seen better days. The neon sign flickered weakly, and the paint on the building was faded and peeling. He pulled into the gravel lot, noticing that he was the only customer there. The place seemed deserted, and an eerie silence hung in the air. Jack parked his car next to the lone gas pump and climbed out. The wind was hot and dry, and the desert seemed to stretch out forever in every direction. He shivered despite the heat and approached the gas pump, trying to ignore the sense of unease that had settled over him. As he began to pump gas into his car, he noticed a figure in the dimly lit window of the convenience store. It was the gas station attendant, an elderly man with a weathered face and a distant look in his eyes. He was staring at Jack as if he had been waiting for him to arrive. "Evening," Jack called out as he finished pumping gas. The old man didn't respond. He simply continued to stare. Jack decided to pay no mind to the strange behavior and headed into the convenience store. The interior was dimly lit, and the shelves were sparsely stocked with dusty, outdated products. It felt like a relic from a bygone era, a time when gas stations were more than just places to refuel. The old man behind the counter had a name tag that read Frank. His eyes were fixed on Jack as he approached. "Evening," Jack repeated, trying to break the eerie silence. "I could use a fill-up and something to eat. You still serving?" Frank nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Jack. "Gas pumps out back. Help yourself to the menu. We got burgers, fries, and coffee. What'll it be?" Jack ordered a cheeseburger and a coffee, then headed out to pump gas. The wind had picked up, and the sky was clear and filled with stars. He couldn't help but feel a sense of isolation as he stood alone in the desert night. the gas station's surroundings seemingly empty for miles. Back inside, Jack took a seat at the counter. He watched as Frank prepared his meal, the old man's movements slow and deliberate. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the gas station and its lone attendant. The isolation, the eerie silence, and Frank's strange behavior all added to his unease. As he ate, Jack noticed a group of locals sitting at a corner booth, huddled together in hushed conversation. Their eyes darted towards him occasionally, but they said nothing. Jack tried to strike up a conversation with Frank to ease his discomfort. "Quiet night, huh?" he ventured. Frank nodded, his expression unchanging. "It's always quiet around here, not much happens." Jack finished his meal in silence and pushed a few bills across the counter to cover the cost. As he prepared to leave, Frank spoke up. "Be careful out there." Jack thanked Frank and headed out into the desert night. The wind was hot and dry and the sky was filled with stars. The gas station's surroundings seemed desolate. He climbed into his car and started the engine, the headlights cutting through the darkness as he pulled onto the empty highway. The road stretched out before him, a lonely ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the vast desert. As he drove, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced in the rearview mirror but saw nothing behind him. The sense of unease grew stronger, and he couldn't help but think of the locals at the gas station and their secretive conversation. Just as he was starting to feel paranoid, Jack spotted a pair of headlights approaching in the distance. He breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for the company on this isolated stretch of road. As the vehicle drew nearer, he realized it was the same pickup truck that had been parked at the gas station. It was driving erratically, swerving from side to side. Jack slowed down, giving the truck plenty of space. He watched in growing concern as it veered dangerously close to the edge of the road. Suddenly, the pickup truck veered off the road and into the desert. Jack slammed on his brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched in horror as the truck crashed through the sand and disappeared from sight. For a moment, Jack considered following the truck to see if the driver was okay. But the isolation of the desert and the unpredictability of the situation made him hesitate. He also couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The way the truck had swerved and then veered off the road had been deliberate, almost intentional. After a few minutes of indecision, Jack decided to continue on his way. He reasoned that the driver of the pickup truck might have been drunk or reckless, and there was nothing he could do to help them in this desolate place. He put the incident out of his mind and focused on the road ahead. Miles passed and Jack finally reached the outskirts of a small town. He pulled into a well-lit parking lot and checked into a motel, grateful for the chance to get out of the desert night. As he lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about the strange events of the evening. The gas station, the pickup truck, the erratic driver, and the mysterious locals. Something was not right in this place, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon a secret that was best left buried. Just as he was starting to drift off to sleep, Jack heard the sound of the wind howling outside. But this time it was accompanied by a low, distant rumble of thunder. As he listened to the storm raging in the desert, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if the gas station at Desert Oasis was a haven for secrets, and the storm was a harbinger of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface? With that unsettling thought in mind, Jack pulled the covers tighter around him and closed his eyes, hoping that the morning would bring answers and the chance to escape the eerie gas station at Desert Oasis. As the night wore on, Jack's unease only deepened, and he couldn't escape the feeling that he had only scratched the surface of a much deeper and darker mystery. The gas station at Desert Oasis held its secrets, and he was determined to uncover them no matter the cost. Story 2. Tom had been on the road for hours. The desolate stretch of highway seemed to go on forever, with nothing but the endless expanse of the desert on either side. He had passed only a handful of cars, and the sun had long since set, casting a blanket of darkness over the landscape. The only source of light was his car's headlights slicing through the inky blackness. His gas gauge was edging dangerously close to empty, and panic began to creep into his mind. He had no choice but to pull over at the next gas station he found, no matter how isolated it might be. Just as he was starting to worry that he might run out of fuel before he reached one, he spotted a dimly lit sign in the distance. It read, "Crossroads Gas and Mart, 2 miles ahead." Tom's heart skipped a beat. It was a lifeline in the middle of the desert. The Crossroads Gas and Mart looked like it had seen better days. Its neon sign flickered weakly, and the paint on the building was chipped and peeling. As Tom pulled into the gravel lot, he noticed that he was the only customer there. The place seemed deserted, and an eerie silence hung in the air. He parked his car next to the lone gas pump and climbed out. The wind was sharp and cold, and the darkness seemed to press in on him from all sides. He shivered as he approached the gas pump and grabbed the nozzle, trying to ignore the sense of unease that had settled over him. As Tom began to pump gas into his car, he noticed a figure in the dimly lit window of the convenience store. It was the gas station attendant, an old man with a weathered face and a stooped posture. He was staring at Tom with a vacant expression, as if he had been waiting for him to arrive. "Evening," Tom called out as he finished pumping gas. The old man didn't respond. He simply continued to stare. Tom decided to pay no mind to the strange behavior and headed into the convenience store. The interior was dimly lit, and the shelves were sparsely stocked with dusty, outdated products. It felt like a relic from a bygone era, a time when gas stations were more than just places to refuel. The old man behind the counter had a name tag that read Sam. His eyes were fixed on Tom as he approached. "Evening," Tom repeated, trying to break the eerie silence. "I could use a fill-up and something to eat. You still serving?" Sam nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Tom. "Gas pumps out back. Help yourself to the menu. We got burgers, fries, and coffee. What'll it be?" Tom ordered a cheeseburger and a coffee, then headed out to pump gas. The wind had picked up and the sky was overcast. Tom couldn't help but feel a sense of isolation as he stood alone in the cold desert night, the gas station's surroundings seemingly empty for miles. Back inside, Tom took a seat at the counter. He watched as Sam prepared his meal, the old man's movements slow and deliberate. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the gas station and its lone attendant. The isolation, the eerie silence, and Sam's strange behavior all added to his unease. As he ate, Tom noticed a group of locals sitting at a corner booth, huddled together in hushed conversation. Their eyes darted towards him occasionally, but they said nothing. Tom tried to strike up a conversation with Sam to ease his discomfort. "Quiet night, huh?" he ventured. Sam nodded, his expression unchanging. "It's always quiet around here. Not much happens." Tom finished his meal in silence and pushed a few bills across the counter to cover the cost. As he prepared to leave, Sam spoke up. "Be careful out there. These roads can get tricky at night, especially in weather like this." Tom thanked Sam and headed out into the cold desert night. The wind cut through his jacket and he felt a chill run down his spine. The gas station's surroundings seemed desolate, almost otherworldly, as if he had stepped into another dimension. He climbed into his car and started the engine, the headlights cutting through the darkness as he pulled onto the empty highway. The road stretched out before him, a lonely ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the vast desert. As he drove, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced in the rearview mirror but saw nothing behind him. The sense of unease grew stronger, and he couldn't help but think of the locals at the gas station and their secretive conversation. Just as he was starting to feel paranoid, Tom spotted a pair of headlights approaching in the distance. He breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for the company on this isolated stretch of road. As the vehicle drew nearer, he realized it was the same pickup truck that had been parked at the gas station. It was driving erratically, swerving from side to side. Tom slowed down, giving the truck plenty of space. He watched in growing concern as it veered dangerously close to the edge of the road. Suddenly, the pickup truck veered off the road and into the desert. Tom slammed on his brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched in horror as the truck crashed through the sand and disappeared from sight. For a moment, Tom considered following the truck to see if the driver was okay. But the isolation of the desert and the unpredictability of the situation made him hesitate. He also couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The way the truck had swerved and then veered off the road had been deliberate, almost intentional. After a few minutes of indecision, Tom decided to continue on his way. He reasoned that the driver of the pickup truck might have been drunk or reckless, and there was nothing he could do to help them in this desolate place. He put the incident out of his mind and focused on the road ahead. Miles passed, and Tom finally reached the outskirts of a small town. He pulled into a well-lit parking lot and checked into a motel, grateful for the chance to get out of the cold desert night. As he lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about the strange events of the evening: the gas station, the pickup truck, the erratic driver, and the mysterious locals. Something was not right in this place, and Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon a secret that was best left buried. Just as he was starting to drift off to sleep, Tom heard the sound of the wind howling outside, but this time it was accompanied by a low, distant rumble of thunder. As he listened to the storm raging in the desert, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if the gas station at Crossroads was a haven for secrets, and the storm was a harbinger of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface? With that unsettling thought in mind, Tom pulled the covers tighter around him and closed his eyes, hoping that the morning would bring answers and the chance to escape the eerie gas station at Crossroads. As the night wore on, Tom's unease only deepened, and he couldn't escape the feeling that he had only scratched the surface of a much deeper and darker mystery. The gas station at Crossroads held its secrets, and he was determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. Story 3. The night was dark and rainy, the kind of night that made even the most fearless travelers uneasy. John had been driving for hours, the monotonous drumming of rain on the car's roof slowly pushing him towards exhaustion. His eyelids felt heavy, and he knew he needed to find a place to rest. As if on cue, a dimly lit sign emerged from the darkness ahead. It read, "Miller's Gas and Grill, 1 mile ahead." John's heart quickened with relief. He could use a break, maybe grab a bite to eat. The prospect of a warm meal and a chance to stretch his legs was too tempting to resist. He followed the narrow, winding road as it led him towards the gas station. The rain showed no sign of letting up, and the steady hum of the engine provided a comforting backdrop to the otherwise eerie silence of the night. The headlights of his car illuminated the road ahead, revealing dense woods that seemed to press in on all sides. John couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The gas station finally came into view, its flickering neon sign revealing a rustic, weather-worn building. It looked like something out of a forgotten era, a relic of a time when gas stations were more than just convenience stores. John pulled into the gravel lot and parked next to the only other car there, a beat-up pickup truck. As he stepped out of his car, the rain soaked through his jacket almost instantly. He hurried inside, the jingling of a bell above the door announcing his arrival. The interior of the gas station was just as old-fashioned as the exterior. Wooden shelves lined the walls, stocked with an odd assortment of products, and a counter sat at the far end, behind which stood an elderly man with a weathered face and a grizzled beard. "Evening, stranger." The old man greeted him with a toothless smile. "Evening," John replied, shaking off the rain from his coat. "I could use a fill-up and a bite to eat. You still serving?" The old man nodded and gestured towards a small diner area off to the side. "Gas pumps out back. Help yourself to the menu. We got burgers, fries, and coffee. What'll it be?" John ordered a cheeseburger and a coffee, then headed out to pump gas into his car. The rain was coming down harder now, making the task unpleasant. He couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he stood alone in the dark, cold rain. The gas station's surroundings seemed strangely isolated, almost claustrophobic. Back inside, John took a seat at the counter. The old man, whose name tag read Miller, placed a steaming plate in front of him. John thanked him and dug into his meal, grateful for the warmth and sustenance. As he ate, he noticed a couple of locals sitting at the other end of the counter, huddled together in quiet conversation. Their eyes darted towards him occasionally, but they said nothing. John tried to strike up a conversation with Miller. "Quiet night, huh?" The old man nodded, his eyes distant. "It's always quiet around these parts. Ain't much happens here." John couldn't argue with that. He finished his meal in silence, then pushed a few bills across the counter to cover the cost. As he prepared to leave, Miller spoke up. "Be careful out there. These roads can get real tricky at night, especially in weather like this." John thanked him again and headed out into the storm. He climbed into his car and started the engine, watching the windshield wipers struggle to keep up with the rain. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the gas station and its surroundings. The locals' strange behavior and Miller's cryptic warning only added to his unease. As he pulled out of the gas station, John couldn't help but notice that the pickup truck that had been parked there earlier was now gone. He glanced around, wondering where its owner had gone to on such a stormy night. But he quickly dismissed the thought, chalking it up to the oddities of rural life. The road stretched out before him, a never-ending ribbon of wet asphalt that seemed to disappear into the inky darkness. The rain continued to pour, making visibility poor and the journey treacherous. John gripped the steering wheel tightly, his senses on high alert. After what felt like an eternity, John spotted a pair of dim headlights approaching in the distance. He breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for the company on this desolate stretch of road. As the vehicle drew nearer, John noticed that it was the same pickup truck that had been parked at the gas station earlier. It was driving erratically, swerving from side to side as if the driver was struggling to maintain control. John slowed down, giving the truck plenty of space. He watched in growing concern as it weaved dangerously close to the edge of the road. It was as if the driver was playing a dangerous game of chicken with the darkness that surrounded them. Just as John was debating whether to call the police, the pickup truck suddenly veered off the road and into the woods. John slammed on his brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched in horror as the truck crashed through the underbrush, its headlights disappearing into the dense forest. For a moment, John considered following the truck to see if the driver was okay. But the rain was coming down harder than ever, and he didn't relish the idea of getting stuck in the mud. He also couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The way the truck had swerved and then veered off the road had been deliberate, almost intentional. After a few minutes of indecision, John decided to continue on his way. He reasoned that the driver of the pickup truck might have been drunk or reckless, and there was nothing he could do to help them in this weather. He put the incident out of his mind and focused on the road ahead. As the miles passed, John couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in the pit of his stomach. The rain showed no sign of letting up, and the road seemed to stretch on endlessly. He tried to distract himself by turning up the radio, but the crackling static and eerie echoing voices only added to his sense of isolation. Suddenly, the headlights of his car illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road ahead. John slammed on his brakes, his heart leaping into his throat. The figure was a man, soaked to the bone and shivering in the rain. He was waving his arms frantically as if trying to flag down passing cars. Reluctantly, John rolled down his window a crack and called out to the man. "Hey, are you okay?" The man's voice was frantic and desperate. "Please, you have to help me. My car broke down and I'm freezing out here." John's instincts told him to keep driving, to not get involved. But he couldn't leave the man stranded in the middle of nowhere on a night like this. He unlocked the passenger door and motioned for the man to get in. As soon as the man climbed into the car, John regretted his decision. The man's clothes were soaked through and he reeked of alcohol. His eyes were bloodshot and his speech was slurred. "Thanks, man," the stranger mumbled, his words barely coherent. "I don't know what I would have done out there." John forced a smile and tried to make small talk, but the man's responses were erratic and disjointed. He seemed agitated, constantly glancing out the window as if he were expecting something to jump out at them from the darkness. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached a more populated area. John pulled into a well-lit parking lot and turned to the stranger. "This is where I'm headed. You can get out here." The man hesitated for a moment, then nodded and stumbled out of the car. John watched as he walked away, disappearing into the night. Shaken by the encounter, John continued his journey. He couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the pickup truck he had seen earlier, and if the man he had picked up had anything to do with it. The rain had finally begun to let up, but the unease that had settled over him refused to dissipate. Hours passed, and John finally reached his destination, a small town with a motel on the outskirts. He pulled into the parking lot and checked into a room, grateful for the chance to get out of the rain and rest for the night. As he lay in bed, John couldn't stop thinking about the strange events of the evening. The gas station, the pickup truck, the erratic driver, and the mysterious hitchhiker. All of it left him with an overwhelming sense of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled onto something he wasn't meant to see, something that was best left hidden in the darkness. Just as he was about to drift off to sleep, John heard the sound of rain tapping against the window, but this time it was accompanied by a low, distant rumble of thunder. As he listened to the storm outside, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if the rain had been a cover, a way to hide something far more sinister that lurked in the darkness of the night? With that unsettling thought in mind, John pulled the covers tighter around him and closed his eyes, hoping that the morning would bring answers and the chance to leave this mysterious and ominous place far behind. The air hung heavy with the fragrant promise of Thanksgiving, a day for warmth, laughter, and family. The Carter household bustled with activity. The aroma of roasting turkey permeated every corner, blending harmoniously with the sweet scent of pumpkin pie. In the heart of the kitchen, Mrs. Carter orchestrated the culinary symphony, meticulously stirring gravies and basting the golden turkey with utmost care. Mr. Carter, with a jovial smile, prepared the dining room, adorning it with autumnal decorations, while their children, Sarah and Michael, playfully set the table, their laughter echoing through the house. As dusk began to descend, guests trickled in, relatives bearing pies, casseroles, and heartfelt smiles. Warm embraces and cheerful greetings filled the air, enveloping the house in a cocoon of familial bliss. Stories of yesteryears intermingled with peals of laughter, forging memories to be cherished for years to come. As the night wore on, the Carter residence glowed with contentment, the crackling fire in the hearth casting a gentle warmth over the gathering. Amidst the lively chatter, a disconcerting sense of unease began to pervade the atmosphere. A faint smell of smoke wafted into the room, initially dismissed as a mere errant ember from the fireplace. Unbeknownst to the jubilant occupants, a sinister presence lurked just beyond their sanctuary. A dark figure, cloaked in shadows, skulked in the periphery, clandestinely surveying the house, a simmering resentment fueling their every move. Unnoticed amidst the revelry, the figure's malevolent intent festered, stoking the flames of a nefarious scheme. Outside, under the cloak of night, the figure moved with ominous purpose, dousing the walls with a volatile accelerant. The air grew thick with the acrid scent of gasoline as the fiend meticulously drenched the foundation of the Carter home, marking it for destruction. Each sloshing step echoed their vengeful resolve, their heart pulsating with a sinister rhythm. With the stealth of a specter, the figure retreated into the shadows, a flickering match igniting their sinister design. The flame danced to life, a malevolent entity born from the betrayal seeping through the cracks of the night. It crept along the walls, greedily devouring the home, a monstrous fiend unleashed by the twisted desires of one consumed by hatred. Inside, the jovial symphony of laughter abruptly ceased as a faint crackling sound breached the festivities. Initially dismissed as part of the fireplace's ambience, dread slithered into the hearts of the celebrants as wisps of smoke curled around the doorframes. Panic seized the gathering. The festive cheer devolved into frantic chaos. Sarah's piercing scream pierced the clamor, her eyes wide with terror as she beheld the tendrils of fire licking at the walls. Reality twisted into a nightmarish tableau, the once joyous home now a blazing inferno devouring everything in its insatiable hunger. Mr. and Mrs. Carter ushered their guests towards the exits, their faces etched with terror and determination. Smoke billowed, choking the once pristine air while flames roared, devouring memories and dreams in equal measure. Amidst the pandemonium, the figure watched from the shadows, their twisted grin a grotesque mask of satisfaction. Heart-wrenching sobs echoed through the night as the Carter family, surrounded by the anguished cries of their loved ones, stumbled into the cold embrace of the night, their sanctuary reduced to a fiery abyss. The flames painted an infernal portrait against the dark canvas of the night sky, their home, a mere skeleton consumed by the insatiable appetite of destruction. With a final roar, the structure collapsed in a cacophony of splintering wood and billowing flames, a haunting crescendo to the symphony of terror. The figure, shrouded in darkness, vanished into the night, leaving behind the smoldering ruins and shattered lives, a twisted legacy etched in the embers of treachery. The echoes of that fateful Thanksgiving night lingered, a haunting reminder of the fragility of joy, the devastation wrought by betrayal, and the horrifying depths of human malevolence. The Carter family's once joyous celebration lay ensnared in the clutches of an unforgiving fate. their lives forever scarred by the flames of betrayal that ravaged their home and shattered their world in a terrifying denouement of horror. Story 2. In the picturesque town of Maplewood Hills, the serene air was thick with the essence of autumn, painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. The Stevens family was bustling with anticipation, eagerly preparing for their annual Thanksgiving celebration. Sarah Stevens, the mother of the household, had spent days meticulously planning the feast, while her husband David tended to the fireplace, filling the home with a cozy warmth that contrasted the crisp November breeze outside. Their children, Michael and Rebecca, were giddy with excitement, hanging decorative turkeys and cornucopias, transforming the house into a festive haven. Laughter and the aroma of roasting turkey wafted through the air, promising a joyous evening of gratitude and togetherness. As dusk descended, an unexpected knock echoed through the Stevens' door, interrupting the harmonious ambience. Sarah, puzzled by the unanticipated visitor, opened the door to reveal a figure standing in the dimming light, an elderly man with weathered features and a somber demeanor. It was George Reynolds, a distant relative Sarah hadn't seen in years. "George, what a surprise! Come in," Sarah greeted him warmly, though a flicker of uncertainty danced in her eyes. George, clad in worn clothing and bearing a heaviness in his gaze, hesitated before stepping into the welcoming embrace of the Stevens household. His presence evoked an unsettling aura that lingered in the air, an unspoken tension palpable among the family members. "I hope it's not too late to join your celebration, Sarah," George said softly, his voice tinged with a hint of regret. "Of course not, George. We're delighted to have you here," Sarah replied, masking her unease with a gracious smile. As George settled in, his presence cast a shadow over the jovial atmosphere. The family attempted to engage him in conversation, but George remained distant, lost in his thoughts, occasionally offering solemn remarks that disrupted the festive cheer. Throughout the evening, Sarah observed George's demeanor with a growing sense of disquiet. Memories of distant whispers about George's troubled past surfaced in her mind. A past marked by a grim incident that had stained the family's history. Years ago, George had been involved in a harrowing incident, a murder that had sent shockwaves through their family. He had served his time in prison, but the haunting specter of that dark chapter lingered, an uncomfortable reality Sarah had hoped to bury in the depths of forgotten memories. As the evening progressed, unease simmered beneath the veneer of familial warmth. George's presence felt like a looming specter, his hollow stares and subdued demeanor casting a scary pall over the gathering. As the family sat down for their Thanksgiving meal, an unsettling silence settled upon the table. The clinking of utensils against plates was accompanied by fleeting glances exchanged between family members, an unspoken acknowledgement of the disquietude that George's presence had stirred. Midway through the meal, a somber hush enveloped the room, shattered only by George's sudden words, uttered in a tone that pierced through the tranquility. "I remember this place," George mumbled, his voice hollow, eyes fixed on a distant corner of the dining room. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she exchanged a worried glance with David. Unnerved by George's cryptic statement, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Suddenly, a dark realization dawned upon Sarah. The unsettling silence that had cloaked George's past, the distant whispers, all converged into a haunting moment of dreadful recognition. Before anyone could react, George's countenance contorted into a visage of anguish and remorse. With a tortured expression, he stood abruptly, knocking over his chair in a startling motion that shattered the fragile semblance of normalcy. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," George whispered, his voice laden with guilt as he clutched his chest, his body trembling violently. The room fell into a stunned silence, the air thick with disbelief and horror. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched in frozen terror, realizing the grim truth that was unraveling before her eyes. In a haunting culmination, George collapsed to the ground, convulsing in agony, his anguished cries echoing through the once celebratory household. Shocked and paralyzed by the unfolding horror, the family could only stare in sheer terror as George's body convulsed and writhed, a haunting finale to their Thanksgiving gathering. Amidst the chaos and distress, the truth unfolded. The harrowing burden of George's past had consumed him, unleashing an unfathomable nightmare upon the Stevens family, forever staining their cherished Thanksgiving with the unbearable weight of a dark and ghastly revelation. Story 3. In the cozy town of Willowbrook, anticipation filled the air as families prepared for the cherished Thanksgiving celebration. The Reed family, adorned in warm sweaters and smiles, gathered around the dining table, their home illuminated by the soft glow of flickering candles. Mark Reed, the patriarch, had spent the morning roasting the perfect turkey, while his wife Emily skillfully crafted an array of delectable side dishes, filling the house with enticing aromas. Their children, Ethan and Olivia, buzzed with excitement, eagerly setting the table with vibrant autumn-themed decorations. The mood was festive, and laughter echoed within the walls as the family anticipated the arrival of their relatives for the Thanksgiving feast. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a knock on the door shattered the serene atmosphere. Mark, puzzled by the unexpected interruption, answered the door to find two stern-faced police officers standing on his porch. A chill ran down his back at the sight of their grim expressions. "Mr. Reed, we need to speak with you," one of the officers stated, his voice laced with solemnity. Bewildered and apprehensive, Mark invited them in, his mind racing with confusion and concern. Emily and the children watched in worried silence as the officers explained the purpose of their visit, an allegation connecting Mark to a recent homicide in the vicinity. Mark's heart sank, and a wave of disbelief washed over him as he vehemently denied any involvement. The officers, however, insisted that they had evidence linking him to the crime scene. They informed Mark that they needed to take him into custody for further questioning. Stunned and desperate to clear his name, Mark attempted to reassure his family. "I promise, it's a mistake. I'll sort this out and be back soon," he assured them, his voice wavering with uncertainty. As the officers escorted Mark away, Emily and the children stood in shock, grappling with the sudden upheaval that had shattered their Thanksgiving bliss. Fear and confusion clouded their thoughts as they watched Mark being led away, their hearts heavy with disbelief. Hours passed, and the once vibrant household now felt eerily desolate without its patriarch. Emily struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy for the sake of Ethan and Olivia, but the weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, casting a pall over the Thanksgiving celebration. As the evening wore on, anxiety gnawed at Emily's core, and the children's fretful glances mirrored her distress. With every passing moment, the absence of Mark loomed larger, an ominous void that tainted the warmth of their familial gathering. Then a sudden ring of the doorbell pierced the silence, jolting Emily and the children from their worried thoughts. Ethan rushed to answer the door, hoping for Mark's return, but his hopes were shattered as he faced a disheveled man standing in the doorway. It was Mark, but his countenance was a haunting contrast to his usual demeanor. His eyes held a hollow emptiness, his clothing disheveled, and an air of desolation clung to him like a shroud. "Mark, what happened? Are you okay?" Emily's voice trembled with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Mark's response was a hollow whisper devoid of its usual warmth. "I didn't do it. I didn't..." He trailed off, his words trailing into a haunting silence. Before anyone could comprehend the gravity of the situation, Mark staggered forward, his gaze fixed on an unseen horror that seemed to consume him from within. With a sudden, shocking realization, Emily and the children recoiled in terror as Mark's hands trembled violently, clutching something, a blood-stained knife. In a horrifying twist of fate, the truth slowly unraveled, a truth too devastating to comprehend. Mark's fragmented recollections and the damning evidence against him collided in a dark revelation, a revelation that shook the foundation of the Reed family's world. Unable to bear the weight of his torment, Mark's shattered psyche succumbed to a terrifying reality. With a gut-wrenching scream, he raised the knife, plunging it into his own chest, the metallic tang of blood mingling with the acrid scent of tragedy. Shock and horror paralyzed Emily and the children, their cries drowned by the sudden nightmarish crescendo that shattered the once hopeful Thanksgiving celebration. The gut-wrenching sight of their beloved father and husband succumbing to the depths of despair stained their cherished memories, forever etching a harrowing finale to their once joyous holiday gathering. Story 4. In a quaint suburban town nestled among the autumn-kissed trees, The Johnson family was gearing up for their annual Thanksgiving gathering. The crisp air outside hinted at the impending holiday, while inside the aroma of roasting turkey and simmering spices filled the cozy household. Warm hues of amber and gold adorned the walls, casting a welcoming glow upon the family members as they bustled about, preparing for the festive evening ahead. Margaret Johnson, the matriarch of the family, was orchestrating the culinary symphony in the kitchen. Her husband Thomas was meticulously arranging the dining table, making sure every detail was perfect for the impending feast. Meanwhile, their two children, Emily and James, were setting up the living room, adorning it with autumnal decorations and flickering candles to create a comforting ambience. As the day waned and darkness draped over the neighborhood, a sense of anticipation filled the Johnson household. However, unbeknownst to them, a horrific scenario was about to unravel. Far across town, at the local psychiatric institution, a man named Gabriel Smith had been undergoing treatment for severe schizophrenia. Gabriel had been committed after a series of violent episodes and delusions that made him a danger to himself and others. Despite the institution's strict security measures, Gabriel had managed to devise a plan, exploiting a moment of negligence by the staff to escape into the night. Disoriented and consumed by his fractured reality, Gabriel embarked on a harrowing journey through the moonlit streets. His mind was a labyrinth of tormenting whispers, urging him to find his way back to a place he vaguely remembered, a place where he believed his fractured memories could be made whole. As the Johnsons continued their Thanksgiving preparations, a sudden knock echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Thomas, curious about the unexpected visitor, made his way to the front door, assuming it might be an early guest. However, as he swung the door open, he was greeted not by a friendly face, but by a disheveled figure standing in the shadows. It was Gabriel, his eyes wide with a manic intensity, and his demeanor erratic, a stark contrast to the serene ambience of the holiday. "Please, I need to find her," Gabriel muttered, his voice trembling with urgency, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Thomas, taken aback by the stranger's frantic state, attempted to calm him down. "Who are you looking for? Can we help you?" But Gabriel's gaze remained fixed, his words disjointed. "She's here. I know she's here. I have to find her before it's too late." Sensing the man's distress, Thomas hesitated, unsure of how to handle the situation. Before he could respond, Gabriel pushed past him, rushing into the house with an unsettling determination. The sudden intrusion startled Margaret and the rest of the family. Emily let out a startled gasp, while James stood frozen, uncertain of what to do. "Who are you? What do you want?" Margaret demanded, her voice laced with concern and a hint of fear. Gabriel's eyes darted around the room, his breath shallow and rapid. "I need to find her. She's my daughter. They took her away, but I know she's here." The tension in the room escalated as Gabriel's presence became increasingly unsettling. His frenzied search led him through the house, overturning furniture and rummaging through belongings in a desperate quest that made the family uneasy and fearful. Attempting to defuse the situation, Thomas cautiously approached Gabriel. "Sir, please calm down. We don't have anyone here." Before he could finish his sentence, Gabriel's erratic behavior reached its crescendo. With a guttural scream, he lunged at Thomas, his eyes ablaze with madness. The family's shrieks reverberated through the house as chaos erupted. Furniture crashing and the once serene Thanksgiving atmosphere shattered. In a horrifying blur, Gabriel unleashed a frenzied assault, wielding objects at the family in a frenzy fueled by his fractured reality. Margaret's cries echoed in the chaos as James and Emily scrambled to escape the onslaught, their hearts pounding with terror. Amidst the pandemonium, a chilling realization struck the family. Gabriel was not merely a stranger, but a harbinger of unfathomable horror, an embodiment of relentless madness unleashed upon their tranquil Thanksgiving celebration. The harrowing ordeal culminated in a scene of unfathomable horror, a nightmare etched into the Johnson family's memory forever, a stark reminder of how swiftly and mercilessly darkness could descend upon the most joyous of occasions. As the sirens wailed in the distance, echoing the arrival of law enforcement, the once vibrant household stood desolate, a haunting tableau of Thanksgiving turned tragically nightmarish, a tale of a broken mind that shattered the serenity of a family's cherished gathering, leaving behind a trail of unspeakable horror and irreparable devastation. In the heart of Stonehill Valley, concealed within a veil of dense mist and shadowed by ancient elms, stood the enigmatic cryptic mausoleum, a structure cloaked in whispered tales and centuries-old mysteries. The mausoleum's weathered facade exuded an uncanny allure, drawing curious souls with its cryptic aura and enigmatic presence. Amongst those intrigued by the mausoleum's enigma was Daniel Evans, an inquisitive historian whose fascination with forgotten relics led him to uncover the mysteries veiled by the passage of time. Daniel's tireless quest for historical truths guided him through dusty archives and faded manuscripts, seeking to unravel the secrets that surrounded the cryptic structure. Through his research, Daniel pieced together fragmented narratives, an intricate tapestry woven from centuries of folklore and forgotten tales. Whispers among the locals hinted at the mausoleum's elusive history, a resting place for a noble family shrouded in enigmatic circumstances and steeped in dark legends. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Daniel journeyed to Stonehill Valley, his steps echoing amidst the mist-draped pathways that led to the cryptic mausoleum. The atmosphere was thick with a haunting silence, and an inexplicable chill hung in the air, a prelude to the mysteries veiled within the mausoleum's ancient walls. As Daniel approached the weathered structure, an uncanny sense of fear settled upon him. The mausoleum's dilapidated grandeur bore the weight of forgotten histories, its stony visage adorned with cryptic symbols that hinted at untold secrets waiting to be unveiled. Undeterred by the ominous ambience, Daniel ventured inside the mausoleum, guided by the dim light filtering through stained glass windows that cast kaleidoscopic hues across the chamber's stone walls. The interior lay shrouded in a sepulchral silence, each step echoing through the hallowed halls. As he traversed the mausoleum's labyrinthine corridors, Daniel encountered sarcophagi adorned with ornate carvings and faded inscriptions, a testament to the noble lineage entombed within. The cryptic symbols etched upon the walls hinted at hidden meanings, veiled beneath layers of forgotten lore. In his exploration, Daniel stumbled upon a secluded chamber, an antechamber veiled by shadows and suffused with an odd ambience. The chamber harbored a sinister presence, a cryptic energy that seemed to permeate the very air, urging Daniel to decipher its arcane mysteries. Drawn to an ancient sarcophagus at the chamber's center, Daniel sensed a peculiar resonance, an enigmatic force emanating from the ornately crafted casket. His fingers traced the faded engravings adorning the sarcophagus, attempting to decipher the cryptic symbols that adorned its surface. In a sudden revelation, the chamber seemed to shudder, a disconcerting tremor that reverberated through the stone walls. Shadows coalesced, twisting and contorting into enigmatic shapes that danced along the cryptic inscriptions, teasing Daniel's senses with their elusive meanings. In a heart-stopping moment, a sepulchral groan echoed through the chamber, a haunting lamentation that pierced the silence. The air thickened with an unsettling energy, and a sense of being watched by unseen eyes enveloped Daniel in a frightening embrace. Suddenly, a series of cryptic symbols began to glow upon the sarcophagus, an ominous manifestation that hinted at an ancient secret on the verge of awakening. Daniel's heart raced with trepidation as the mausoleum seemed to pulsate with a hair-raising resonance, a strange presence poised to reveal its enigmatic truth. At a high point, the ancient sarcophagus trembled, an unsettling movement that heralded a sinister revelation. With a blood-curdling shriek, the lid of the sarcophagus shifted, revealing an abyssal darkness that seemed to beckon from within. From the depths of the sarcophagus emerged a ghastly figure, a specter draped in tattered shrouds of time, its hollow gaze fixed upon Daniel. The apparition's anguished visage bore the weight of centuries, an echo of unresolved sorrow bound within the cryptic confines of the mausoleum. With a spectral wail that reverberated through the chamber, the apparition surged forth, an unearthly force that enveloped Daniel in its ethereal embrace. His terrified cries echoed through the mausoleum as the spectral entity claimed him, condemning him to an eternity trapped within the enigmatic shadows of the cryptic mausoleum. As the night settled over Stonehill Valley, an eerie silence descended upon the mausoleum, a testament to the enigmatic secrets that lingered within its ancient walls. Daniel Evans's disappearance became yet another haunting mystery, a real testament to the perils that awaited those who dared to unravel the enigmatic echoes of the past. Story 2. In the serene outskirts of Cedarwood Village lay an old abandoned cemetery known for its unmarked graves, a peculiar testament to forgotten souls who found their eternal rest amidst the veil of obscurity. The cemetery, with its weathered tombstones and unmarked plots, was a place shrouded in silent mysteries. Tales whispered among the villagers spoke of an ancient curse that plagued the unmarked graves, a solemn reminder of an era obscured by the sands of time. The absence of identifiable markings rendered the graves a haunting enigma, a silent chorus of forgotten stories etched into the soil, awaiting discovery. Amongst the curious inhabitants drawn to the village's enigmatic history was Sarah Collins, a young historian with a fervent passion for unraveling forgotten narratives. Sarah's fascination led her to delve into the village archives, seeking fragments of a past veiled by neglect and abandoned recollections. As Sarah sifted through dusty records and faded documents, she pieced together fragments of the cemetery's obscured history, a once revered burial ground overshadowed by an ancient curse. The unmarked graves bore testimony to an unresolved tragedy, a legacy of silent echoes waiting to be unearthed. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Sarah ventured into the abandoned cemetery, a hallowed ground nestled within the embrace of time-worn trees. The atmosphere was heavy with a sepulchral silence, and an inexplicable feeling lingered in the air, as if the whispers of the forgotten souls echoed through the dilapidated gravestones. Amidst the overgrown foliage and decrepit tombstones, Sarah traced her fingers over the weathered engravings, hoping to discern clues that might unveil the stories hidden within the unmarked graves. Each unmarked plot carried an air of solemn mystery, a silent testament to lives obscured by the passage of time. As the daylight waned and shadows danced across the cemetery, Sarah felt a palpable unease, a spectral presence that seemed to stir amidst the forgotten graves. The absence of identifiable markers seemed to intensify the freakish ambience, hinting at stories yearning to be remembered. Undeterred by the foreboding atmosphere, Sarah continued her exploration, guided by an unwavering determination to unravel the secrets veiled by the unmarked graves. Each step forward felt like a journey deeper into the unknown, an enigmatic labyrinth of obscured histories waiting to resurface. Amidst the fading light, Sarah stumbled upon a peculiar section of the cemetery, a cluster of unmarked graves shrouded by encroaching foliage, seemingly untouched by time's passage. An air of disquiet settled upon the area, as if the silent echoes of the forgotten souls beckoned her to uncover their buried truths. With a sense of trepidation, Sarah knelt beside one of the unmarked graves, feeling an inexplicable pull, a haunting resonance that seemed to emanate from the soil itself. Her fingers traced the faint impressions left by time, a somber reminder of a life unmarked by legacy or remembrance. Suddenly, a sinister realization gripped Sarah, a warning sense of impending doom that coiled around her senses. The atmosphere shifted, the air thickening with an unseen presence, and an ominous feeling of being watched by unseen eyes enveloped her. In the moment, the ground beneath Sarah began to tremble, a sinister force stirring from the forgotten depths. A hollow whisper echoed through the cemetery, carrying an ancient lament, a spectral chorus of voices yearning to break the shackles of silent obscurity. With a sudden jolt, the unmarked graves seemed to quake, a haunting manifestation of the curse that bound the forgotten souls to their obscured resting places. The ground churned and heaved, and unearthly cries pierced the air as if the silenced voices of the buried emerged in a lamentation. In a horrifying climax, the spectral unrest surged forth, a cacophony of ethereal apparitions rising from the unmarked graves. The ghostly figures, draped in tattered shrouds of time, converged upon Sarah with an ethereal presence, their mournful visages a testament to the unresolved tragedy that tethered them to their forgotten resting grounds. Sarah's heart raced with terror as she found herself ensnared within the spectral congregation, a dark encounter with the tormented echoes of the unmarked graves. Their spectral hands reached out, grasping for her essence, an attempt to draw her into the perpetual limbo that plagued their silent existence. In a desperate bid to escape the spectral grasp, Sarah fought against the unearthly apparitions, struggling against the ethereal force that sought to claim her. Her terrified cries echoed through the cemetery, lost amidst the haunting lamentation that reverberated through the night. As the moon cast its pale glow upon the cemetery, a silence settled once more, a haunting reminder of the curse that lingered within the unmarked graves. Sarah Collins's disappearance became yet another enigmatic chapter in Cedarwood Village's history, a testament to the perils that awaited those who dared to disturb the silent echoes of forgotten souls. Story 3. Nestled within the heart of Greenridge Town, cloaked in a serenity that contrasted the bustling streets, lay the silent grounds, a cemetery steeped in history and adorned with weathered gravestones that bore witness to the passage of time. Legends whispered of a silent guardian, a figure veiled in mystery, watching over the hallowed grounds. For decades, tales had circulated among the townsfolk, weaving the enigmatic narrative of the guardian. Stories depicted the figure as a silent sentinel, a solitary presence that prowled the cemetery's pathways under the moon's pale light, a protector of the sanctity of the resting souls. Amongst the local populace, Emma Hayes, a young librarian with an insatiable curiosity for the town's folklore, found herself drawn to the mysterious tales surrounding the silent grounds and its elusive guardian. Her fascination led her to delve into the annals of history, uncovering fragments of forgotten lore that hinted at the guardian's existence. As Emma delved deeper into the town's archives, she unearthed tales dating back centuries, accounts of an enigmatic figure cloaked in darkness, whose silent vigilance over the silent grounds was a testament to an unspoken oath to protect the graves from desecration. Driven by a thirst for unraveling the truth behind the legends, Emma embarked on nocturnal expeditions to the silent grounds, each visit tinged with a curious blend of trepidation and fascination. She wandered through the labyrinthine paths, tracing her fingers over the time-worn epitaphs that adorned the crumbling gravestones. Amidst the moonlit silence, Emma felt a peculiar sensation, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that hinted at an unseen presence. Shadows flickered at the corner of her vision, teasing her senses with an ephemeral dance that vanished upon closer scrutiny. Undeterred by the elusive nature of her pursuit, Emma ventured deeper into the cemetery's depths, a peculiar sense of being watched tugging at her consciousness. Her steps echoed amidst the sepulchral silence, each footfall seemingly resonating with the untold stories buried within the silent grounds. On one fateful night, as Emma wandered the cemetery's pathways, a solemn stillness settled over the grounds. The air grew heavy with a palpable tension, and an inexplicable sent shivers down her spine. A whisper of movement caught her attention, a fleeting shadow that seemed to glide among the gravestones. Emma's heart quickened its pace as she followed the elusive silhouette, an amalgamation of fear and intrigue propelling her forward. Through the mist-draped alleys, she glimpsed the outline of a figure, a solitary sentinel shrouded in darkness, standing vigil over the resting souls. With bated breath, Emma approached the figure, an unspoken curiosity overriding her trepidation. The guardian stood motionless, a silent silhouette amid the moon's ethereal glow, exuding an air of somber authority that sent a coldness down Emma's spine. As she drew closer, the guardian's features remained veiled in shadow, an enigmatic presence emanating an aura of ancient wisdom and unwavering resolve. The moonlight cast an odd luminescence upon the figure, lending an otherworldly quality to the scene. In a daring move, Emma attempted to address the guardian, her voice quivering as she sought answers to the age-old mysteries that shrouded the silent grounds. Yet her words dissipated into the night, met with a profound silence from the stoic figure. A sudden gust of wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it an ominous whisper that seemed to echo from the guardian itself. Emma's heart raced as a sense of impending doom clouded her thoughts, a realization that she had trespassed upon an ancient sanctum guarded by an entity beyond mortal comprehension. In a haunting climax, the guardian's shadowy form began to shimmer, a spectral metamorphosis that defied explanation. Emma's breath caught in her throat as the figure dissolved into wisps of darkness, an unsettling manifestation that sent a surge of terror coursing through her veins. With an abnormal howl that pierced the night, the guardian's ephemeral form dissipated into the ether, leaving Emma trembling in its wake, a witness to the fleeting apparition that guarded the silent grounds. The encounter left an indelible mark, etching the enigmatic guardian's presence into the annals of the silent grounds' enduring legend. Story 4. In the quaint town of Ravenwood, nestled amidst rolling hills and shadowed by ancient trees, lay the Whispering Oak Cemetery, a serene resting place for the departed souls of generations past. The caretaker of this silent sanctuary was an enigmatic figure known only as Old Man Harrington, the graveyard keeper whose mysterious presence stirred whispers among the townsfolk. Rumors swirled around Old Man Harrington, tales woven from threads of suspicion and speculation. Some regarded him as a solitary soul, committed to tending the graves with unwavering diligence, while others whispered darker stories, an inscrutable past veiled by shadows, hinting at a hidden secret buried within the cemetery's grounds. Among the curious townsfolk was Rebecca Thornton, an inquisitive journalist with an insatiable appetite for uncovering hidden truths. Rebecca's journalistic instincts led her to the intriguing lore surrounding Old Man Harrington, the enigmatic graveyard keeper whose enshrouded past beckoned her to unravel its mysteries. Through tireless research and tireless inquiries, Rebecca pieced together fragments of Ravenwood's folklore, a patchwork of tales hinting at Old Man Harrington's elusive past. The townsfolk's whispered suspicions, coupled with cryptic accounts from decades past, wove a tapestry of uncertainty around the keeper of Whispering Oak Cemetery. Driven by an unyielding curiosity, Rebecca ventured to the cemetery, her footsteps echoing amidst the gravestones that bore silent witness to the passage of time. The serenity of the graveyard belied an underlying sense of unease, a palpable tension that hung in the air, hinting at stories waiting to be unearthed. With each visit, Rebecca observed Old Man Harrington's meticulous care for the graves, a steadfast devotion that seemed intertwined with a veiled melancholy. She sought to penetrate the enigmatic facade of the graveyard keeper, yearning to uncover the truth concealed beneath his stoic countenance. As twilight cast elongated shadows across the cemetery, Rebecca's inquiries led her to approach Old Man Harrington, a figure shrouded in the fading light, his weathered features etched with the weight of unspoken secrets. She endeavored to engage him in conversation, hoping to glean insights into the hidden depths of the graveyard keeper's past. Yet Old Man Harrington remained elusive, a man of few words whose silence spoke volumes. His guarded demeanor hinted at a past veiled in shadows, warding off Rebecca's attempts to unearth the secrets buried within the cemetery's hallowed grounds. Undeterred by the keeper's reticence, Rebecca's determination to uncover the truth led her deeper into the labyrinth of Ravenwood's folklore. She ventured into the town's archives, scouring faded manuscripts and dusty records for clues that might unveil the enigma surrounding Old Man Harrington. Amidst the passages of time-worn chronicles and fading ink, Rebecca stumbled upon cryptic accounts, anecdotes hinting at an incident from decades past, an occurrence shrouded in mystery and linked to the whispers that swirled around the graveyard keeper. The accounts spoke of a tragic event, an incident that plunged Ravenwood into mourning, leaving scars upon the town's collective memory. References to an unsolved disappearance, coinciding with Old Man Harrington's arrival as the graveyard keeper, fueled Rebecca's suspicion that a hidden truth lay buried beneath the cemetery's serene facade. With relentless determination, Rebecca sought to confront Old Man Harrington once more, hoping to coax a revelation from the keeper's enigmatic demeanor. She approached him, her voice laced with urgency as she pressed for answers, her inquiries echoing through the silent expanse of Whispering Oak Cemetery. In a rare moment of vulnerability, a haunted expression flickered across Old Man Harrington's weathered face, an echo of pain veiled by years of guarded solitude. His silence spoke volumes, hinting at a burden carried in the recesses of his soul, a secret that lingered like a specter within the graveyard keeper's stoic facade. As the night descended upon the cemetery, a breathtaking realization dawned upon Rebecca, an unsettling truth lurking within the keeper's guarded countenance. In the revelation, the graveyard's shadows seemed to converge, whispering echoes of an obscured past that refused to be silenced. In a heart-stopping moment, Old Man Harrington turned to Rebecca, his eyes a window to the hidden torment veiled by the facade of stoic resolve. With a shudder, he uttered cryptic words, a haunting confession that shattered the silence of the graveyard, a revelation that shook Rebecca to the core. In a voice laden with sorrow and remorse, Old Man Harrington spoke of a dark secret buried within Whispering Oak Cemetery, a buried truth intertwined with his own tragic past. He confessed to a long-buried secret, an unsolved mystery that bound him to the graveyard's silent grounds. Before Rebecca could comprehend the weight of the revelation, a sudden darkness enveloped the cemetery, a malevolent presence that seemed to manifest from the keeper's whispered confession. A haunting specter emerged from the shadows, an apparition draped in the veil of long-forgotten sorrow. With a blood-curdling shriek, the apparition surged forth, an unearthly entity bound to the hidden secret within the cemetery. Its spectral form loomed over Rebecca and Old Man Harrington, its mournful wail echoing through the graveyard in a symphony of tortured echoes. In a sudden pinnacle, the apparition's ethereal touch reached out, enveloping Old Man Harrington within its spectral embrace, an agonizing fate that condemned the graveyard keeper to an eternity bound by the curse of the cemetery's unspoken secret. Rebecca watched in horror as Old Man Harrington's form dissipated into the night, his anguished cries lost amidst the haunting wails that reverberated through the graveyard. The cold encounter left Rebecca paralyzed by terror, a witness to the tragic fate that awaited those entangled within the enigmatic secrets of Whispering Oak Cemetery. Story 5. In a small, picturesque town nestled amid verdant landscapes, a peculiar urban legend shrouded the tale of Dr. Jacob Fairchild. Decades ago, Dr. Fairchild, a respected physician and scientist, was renowned for his radical theories in regenerative medicine and life extension. His controversial research delved into the realms of cellular regeneration and biological resurrection. As the town's folkloric tales would have it, Dr. Fairchild's ambitious pursuits led to secretive experiments in his secluded mansion on the outskirts of town. Stories whispered of peculiar lights emanating from the mansion at odd hours, unsettling rumors of disquieting screams echoing through the night, and sightings of shadowy figures roaming the property. Emily Carter, an inquisitive journalist with a penchant for uncovering the truth behind local legends, found herself entangled in the enigma of Dr. Fairchild's legacy. Her journalistic instincts piqued by the macabre tales, she delved into the archives, unearthing faded newspaper clippings and scattered testimonials that chronicled Dr. Fairchild's mysterious disappearance. The more Emily investigated, the deeper she delved into the physician's unorthodox theories. His belief in the possibility of regenerating life beyond its natural course became the cornerstone of his research, an ambition that led to his eventual fall from grace and disappearance under suspicious circumstances. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Emily sought to demystify the legend and uncover the truth behind Dr. Fairchild's experiments. She traversed the town, piecing together fragmented accounts from elderly residents and stumbling upon hidden journals and discarded lab notes that hinted at the scientist's radical pursuits. Armed with compelling evidence and a thirst for the truth, Emily journeyed to the outskirts of town, where Dr. Fairchild's secluded mansion stood, an imposing structure shrouded in overgrown foliage and mystic silence. As she approached the decaying mansion, a disquiet sense of unease settled upon her. The dilapidated facade exuded an air of desolation, its shattered windows and weathered doors a testament to the passage of time. The overgrown garden rustled with whispers of forgotten secrets, and a sense of being watched by unseen eyes lingered in the air. Undeterred by the ominous ambience, Emily ventured into the decaying mansion, guided by flickering rays of sunlight that filtered through the broken windows. The interior lay in disarray, a dilapidated laboratory adorned with arcane contraptions, vials of murky liquids, and discarded scientific apparatuses. As Emily explored the forsaken laboratory, she unearthed traces of Dr. Fairchild's ambitious experiments, esoteric journals and scattered notations detailing his relentless pursuit of defying mortality and resurrecting life from the brink of death. Her investigation led her deeper into the mansion's depths, where she stumbled upon a concealed chamber, veiled in shadows and obscured by a sense of unease. The chamber, adorned with strange symbols and archaic diagrams, harbored a scary energy. In the heart of the chamber lay an ominous contraption, a colossal apparatus surrounded by intricately designed machinery and a mystic hum that reverberated through the air. At its center, an ominous pedestal housed an ancient-looking book, adorned with cryptic writings and faded illustrations. Drawn to the mysterious tome, Emily approached cautiously, her fingers tracing the weathered pages that chronicled Dr. Fairchild's radical experiments in resurrection and cellular reanimation. The pages hinted at a ghastly process, a method to harness the essence of life and rekindle it within the confines of death. As she perused the ominous pages, a sudden surge of dark energy engulfed the chamber. Shadows coalesced, twisting and contorting into sinister shapes that danced across the walls, a haunting manifestation that seemed to echo the forbidden experiments once conducted within the mansion's walls. In a heart-stopping revelation, Emily sensed a presence, a spectral echo that emanated from the unearthly apparatus. The ghostly remnants of Dr. Fairchild's relentless pursuit lingered within the chamber, an ethereal essence bound by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and the dark secrets of resurrection. In a horrifying crescendo, the spectral presence surged forth, a maelstrom of unearthly energies that enveloped Emily in a suffocating grip. She recoiled in terror, realizing the sinister truth. The mansion harbored remnants of an unholy experiment gone awry, an eerie echo of Dr. Fairchild's ambitious but macabre pursuits. With a blood-curdling scream, Emily was ensnared within the spectral vortex, a fate sealed by the unnerving echoes of resurrection, condemning her to an eternal dance amidst the shadows of Dr. Fairchild's relentless experimentations. As the night settled over the desolate mansion, a stillness pervaded the atmosphere. Emily Carter's disappearance became yet another unsolved mystery, a harrowing testament to the dangerous pursuit of forbidden knowledge and the perils that lurked within the unexplored realms of the unknown. Story 6. In the outskirts of Ashford Valley, nestled amidst a dense thicket of ancient oaks and veiled by the passage of time, lay an unassuming clearing, a place long forgotten by the town's inhabitants. Within this tranquil glade stood a forgotten burial ground, its gravestones weathered by years of neglect, bearing silent witness to an untold history. The tales woven around this burial ground were shrouded in mystery, whispers of a forgotten chapter in Ashford Valley's past, tales of an abandoned cemetery where those from eras long past found their eternal repose. Overgrown with ivy and embraced by the encroaching wilderness, the burial ground remained an enigmatic relic, a testament to the forgotten souls resting beneath its soil. Among the curious souls drawn to the town's lore was Adam Turner, an earnest historian whose fascination with untold stories led him to unravel the secrets veiled by the veil of time. Adam's quest for the forgotten burial ground's history led him to delve deep into dusty archives and tattered manuscripts, seeking fragments of a past obscured by neglect. As Adam unearthed obscure accounts and forgotten narratives, he pieced together the burial ground's faded legacy, an integral part of Ashford Valley's history erased by the passage of time. The burial ground, once a revered site for the town's early settlers, had fallen into obscurity, forgotten amidst the progress of modernity. Driven by an insatiable desire to resurrect the burial ground's forgotten history, Adam ventured into the forgotten clearing, a quiet oasis hidden away from the bustling town. The burial ground lay in disrepair, its gravestones marred by moss and neglect, a testament to the passage of time that had consigned the site to oblivion. Adam, armed with reverence and a sense of duty, navigated the overgrown paths, tracing his fingers over the weathered gravestones that bore the faded names of those who had long departed. Each inscription held a tale, an echo of a life once lived, now relegated to the annals of forgotten memory. As the afternoon sun waned, casting elongated shadows across the burial ground, Adam felt an inexplicable sense of unease, and bizarre sensation that stirred the air, as if the voices of the departed echoed through the silent glade. Yet his fascination with uncovering the burial ground's hidden history urged him to press forward. Amidst the fading light, Adam stumbled upon a dilapidated crypt, its stone facade adorned with intricate carvings that spoke of an era long past. An air of melancholy hung around the crypt, and a haunting silence pervaded its surroundings, an unsettling aura that hinted at buried secrets waiting to resurface. Driven by an unyielding curiosity, Adam approached the crypt, his footsteps echoing in the stillness of the clearing. A sense of darkness settled upon him, the weight of forgotten histories tugging at his conscience, urging him to unearth the buried truths obscured by time's veil. With trembling hands, Adam brushed aside the encroaching vines that obscured the crypt's entrance, revealing the yawning darkness within. The crypt's interior exuded an oppressive atmosphere, an unnerving silence that resonated with the weight of untold stories entombed within its walls. As Adam stepped into the crypt's depths, an inexplicable cold enveloped him, a sensation that clawed at his senses, hinting at an unseen presence that lingered in the shadows. A faint whisper echoed through the crypt, a haunting murmuring that seemed to reverberate from the forgotten souls resting within. Suddenly, a sepulchral groan emanated from the crypt's depths, a guttural sound that shattered the silence, sending shivers down Adam's spine. The air thickened with an unsettling energy, and a sense of imminent dread coiled around him, binding him within the crypt's suffocating embrace. In a heart-stopping moment, the shadows coalesced into spectral forms, ethereal remnants of the forgotten souls rising from their eternal slumber. Their ghostly apparitions, clad in tattered remnants of an era long past, drifted towards Adam with spectral grace, their hollow eyes fixated upon him. With a blood-curdling realization, Adam found himself ensnared in a spectral congregation, an unearthly assembly of souls forgotten by time. The apparitions encircled him with a haunting reverence, their ghastly visages evoking an unspoken tragedy, an eternity spent in the purgatory of obscurity. In a mystic climax, the apparitions reached out to Adam, their spectral hands grasping for his mortal essence, a harrowing attempt to draw him into their spectral realm, condemning him to an eternity of forgotten torment. With a primal scream, Adam struggled against the spectral grasp, fighting to break free from the unearthly embrace that threatened to claim him. His frantic attempts to escape were met with an overpowering force, an inevitable descent into the abyss of forgotten souls. As the night descended upon the burial ground, a haunting silence settled over the crypt, a testament to the enigmatic allure of forgotten histories that lingered within its depths. Adam Turner's disappearance became yet another unsolved mystery, a true testament to the perils that awaited those who dared to unearth the buried echoes of the past. Story 7. In the heart of an old town, nestled amidst rolling hills and lush forests, lay a weathered cemetery known as Oakwood Rest. Among the rows of faded tombstones stood one solitary monument that captured the town's dark lore, a tombstone marked by the name Edgar Hawthorne. Edgar's grave bore the weight of a dark legend that echoed through generations. Tales spoke of Edgar as a recluse, an eccentric man of mystery who lived on the outskirts of town. His enigmatic life ended in tragedy, leading to a local belief that his restless spirit haunted the cemetery. The tombstone stood weather-beaten, its engravings faded by time. Locals recounted spine-chilling anecdotes of whispers heard around the grave, flickering lights at twilight, and an inexplicable sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Alicia Richards, a young investigative journalist with an intrigue for local legends, stumbled upon the curious lore of Edgar Hawthorne's tombstone. Driven by her passion for uncovering truth amidst folklore, she set out to unravel the mysteries shrouding Oakwood Rest. Researching archives and interviewing elderly residents, Alicia pieced together the fragments of Edgar's life, a once prominent figure in the town, known for his reclusive nature and fascination with the occult. With each revelation, the lines between fact and legend blurred. Some accounts painted Edgar as an enigmatic but misunderstood figure, while others perpetuated the belief in his haunting presence. Alicia's pursuit led her to the cemetery, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious tombstone. As she ventured through Oakwood Rest, a haunting ambience enveloped her. The rustling leaves, the creaking of old trees, and the distant howls of nocturnal creatures set an uncanny backdrop for her investigation. The tombstone loomed ahead, weathered but undeniably imposing. Alicia meticulously examined the inscription, tracing the faded letters etched into the stone. A gust of wind whispered through the trees, causing the hair on her neck to stand on end. The tombstone remained silent, seemingly void of any spectral presence. As night fell and shadows stretched across the cemetery, Alicia felt an unsettling chill. Her flashlight flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced among the gravestones. A sensation of being watched lingered, and a faint voice seemed to whisper on the wind, sending shivers down her spine. Intent on unraveling the truth, Alicia lingered by the tombstone, her determination clouded by a sense of worry. Suddenly, a strange sensation gripped her, and the ground beneath her feet quivered. A low, guttural sound emanated from the earth, a sinister vibration that resonated through the cemetery. Alicia stumbled back, her heart racing, as the ground near Edgar Hawthorne's tombstone began to crack and split open. In a horrifying turn of events, skeletal fingers emerged from the earth, clawing their way into the moonlit night. Alicia's shock turned to terror as the ground continued to rupture, revealing a ghastly sight. A decrepit skeletal figure adorned in tattered remnants of clothing, rising from the grave. Horror seized Alicia as she witnessed the unearthly spectacle. The figure, resembling the remains of a long-deceased man, staggered from the grave, its empty eye sockets fixated on her. A silent scream lodged in Alicia's throat as the revenant stumbled toward her with an unnatural, jerking gait. In a heart-stopping moment, the ghastly specter extended its bony hand toward Alicia, as if beckoning her to join him in the realm of the dead. Paralyzed by fear, she could only watch in terror as the revenant drew closer, the air thick with a putrid stench of decay. The horrifying encounter sent Alicia reeling backward, scrambling away in sheer panic. With adrenaline-fueled desperation, she managed to break free from the ghastly apparition's reach, fleeing the cemetery in terror. As she stumbled out into the safety of the moonlit streets, the echoes of her racing heart drowned out the haunting cries that lingered behind her. The encounter with the revenant at Edgar Hawthorne's tombstone became a haunting tale etched into Alicia's memory, a spine-chilling testament to the depths of Oakwood Rest's enduring legend.